Oh, thank you. Thank you, Rachel.
I'm done it, but I'll close it again.
Beautiful. Perfect.
Is one good?
No, one is fine. Yeah, that's perfect. I'll have to pee if I have more than that. It's like a flight. Watch it. All right, look at this. We're ready to launch. 10-9-8-7-6. Okay, has everybody got their seat? Let's do it. Well, I wanted to just thank everybody for making this a priority on a Thursday, late afternoon, early evening, wherever this catches you. For those of you joining electronically and on a Zoom call, as you might be able to see, I've made this easier for myself by putting out a text to some of the local power players to just say, hey, can you show up at the hangar so I have real faces to look at? And that's going to make this whole thing more enjoyable and more personal to me. It's tough enough. You know, people that see me sometimes talk up front, if that's all they ever see me and that's the only spaces they see me in, they don't realize that I'm kind of an extreme introvert. And people go, there's no way. Well, no, there really is a way. That I get in an argument with God every time I do something like this and go, why? Why? I'm so perfectly fine just doing my own thing quietly. But I've given up the thought that that's going to be my life. I've started teaching what I think and what I think about real estate, like literally over 45 years ago. And at every time I just have to wrestle with the idea that this is purpose, this is what you're supposed to do. And so just do it. Just shut up and do it. So I'm going to give it my best shot one more time, but this makes it a lot easier because the people that are in front of me, I know well. I've been able to invest in them and they in me, and this is a whole different experience than a room full of people that I don't know. And I've had lots of rooms like that, little rooms, 10, 20, and 10,000. And it still feels the same when I don't know that person. It's a challenge, but I'm going to step into it, okay? I made an outline, which is a little unusual for me. But to try to cover the ground that I'm going to cover, which is kind of a lifetime of real estate and things I want you to know, in 3 hours, you better make an outline and you better kind of stay with it. So where normally I wouldn't look side once, I'll talk all day if it's at a power players event or wherever, and I don't use notes. I know where we're going, but I want to pack a lot into these few hours that we have. I appreciate your full focused attention. I'd appreciate seeing your picture up there. I'd like to think that you're going to give me your full attention and your focus as I'm giving that to you. And so with that, I want to put a warning label on today, is that no matter how much I try to wring myself out, there is no way that what I'm going to tell you in 3 hours is going to set you out the door with a new toolbox to go get things done tomorrow. There's just no way. This sport there's too much to know. And my hope is that after our time together, that you're disturbed, that you're taller, that you see new possibilities, that you're challenged, and that you're wonderfully disturbed. Jim Rohn says that all significant change starts with a precursor of disgust. And I agree with that, because change is an inside job. Change is personal. Nobody changes you. You have to change yourself. And so I'm going to cover a lot of ground that's going to ask a lot of questions. I don't give a lot of answers, but I do ask a lot of questions. But those questions are about making you look in the mirror and say, am I living my best life? Is this what I'm capable of? Is this all there is? When we ask those questions and we see alternatives and we see different ways of thinking and different ways of going about things, the whole world starts getting mixed up like a salad bowl, and that's good. That's the disruption piece. And then from there, we come out of it a better person going in a better direction. So anyway, that's my hope. I also am giving myself permission today to be me. And, you know, I've spoke at hundreds and hundreds of real estate investment groups around the country. I don't do that anymore. Because everybody says, here's what I want you to do, and here's what you got to do, and no, I don't want to do that. I just do my own thing on my own terms, and so this is my own space and with my people. See, I'm fishing in a barrel. What can go wrong? If we lost power right now, believe me, we got food and beer. We're in good shape, right? And so I'm going to be me. And me is unusual. It's different. And yet, aren't we all? We're one of one. But I'm going to be my one of one. And I'm not here to entertain anybody. I'm not here to please anybody. I've got 50 years of experience doing what I do. And I'm going to just say it the way I really believe it. And so I hope there's something in that that's valuable, okay? Today starts with the realization that we are all the same. And I can prove it to you. If you'll lean in and follow along, tell me has anybody ever felt overwhelmed? Oh God, that'd be like everybody in the room. That's not very enviable, is it? Right? Anybody ever felt confused? Anybody ever worried that the gifts that they were given and the horsepower that was instilled in them isn't really playing itself out? Like, damn it. When we understand that we're really all the same, all by itself, that changes the playing field. You think, oh, I have nothing in common with them. Oh, well, bullshit. You have everything in common with them. So today starts with a phrase that I want you to write down, and it's on my chalkboard right up there. It's been up there for years. That everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. But the fact that everyone is fighting a battle makes us all the same. We're all navigating things. And when you know people well and you get to the core of who they are, you get to understand what they're navigating. And it sometimes is seen on the outside, most times it isn't. But there's a battle. I start there. I start there because one of the weird things about me is that from a very early age, when I read something that moved me, I would print it and I would memorize it. No real reason other than I really wanted to process deeply what I was reading, and so to memorize it, now I don't have to carry around a paper. I just can say it over and over again. I can think on it deeply. I got validated recently by a book that I read. Tim Ferriss wrote a book called Tools for Titans, and he summarizes, after talking with a couple hundred entrepreneurs, really hard-driving entrepreneurs, he has a glossary at the end that sort of summarizes things statistically, and he says, how many of the people did he interview will listen to a song 200 times in a row? In a row. 85% of the entrepreneurs he interviewed listened to a song 200 times in a row. And I thought, oh my God, that's what I do. I'll fly from Atlanta to Seattle and just repeat and turn it up louder and not just know the message, but by the time I'm in Seattle, I have the meaning. I'm the writer of that song. I get it in a visceral way. Well, I think that when you read and when you process that way, you see things through a deeper lens. And for whatever reason, that's how I've always seen the world. And I remember when I was 17 years old and anticipating graduating from high school soon, you know, the world's going to be my oyster. My brain was just spinning around. And do you remember that time in life where it's like, oh my God, here we go. I'm going to be on my own. I can do anything I want to do. I can create anything I want to create, go anywhere I want to go, you know, and yet you don't know how you're going to do all those things. And you didn't want to mess it up. You know, this is your launch. You want to go and get there, wherever there is. And I remember at that time having so many questions, and I read a piece of script at that time. And it's like it was written for me, because it was written by a guy that launched. He went out there. He went and did it. And then he hit the pause button and went, what the hell? It's not going right. It's not going the way I thought it should go. And so he took off. And he went out of town. And he found a little lake. And he sat there and figured it out. And he wrote, I went to the woods because I wanted to live deliberately. I wanted to live deep, to suck out all the marrow of life, to put to rout all that was not life, not, when I die, discover I've not lived. And I remember pulling this apart. Suck out all the marrow of life, put to rout all that was not life. There was life and there was not life. Things that add up and have meaning and purpose and depth, and a whole bunch of shit that doesn't do any of that and is a waste of life and time and energy and effort. And I remember processing this deeply the same week I bought my first house. That first house, Jeff and Kelly paid me $100 each a month for rent, my roommates. My house payment was $206.10 a month. And somehow a light bulb went on, and I went, oh my God. It was like a limousine pulled up and said, where do you want to go? It was like I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow, but how? How do I do all the things I want to do? How do I experience life the way I want to experience it? And all of a sudden, the vehicle pulled up because it occurred to me that Jeff and Kelly were buying me my house that I was living in. I couldn't believe it. And my life changed in that moment. And so I give some thanks to Henry David Thoreau, who inspired me to think deeply about what is and should be and what doesn't deserve a minute of your time. Fast forward to today. The question I get asked more than any other question is, how do I get as much done in a day as I get done? People look like, God, how do you get all this done? How do you stay on top of all this? And the answer is what I don't do. And so it sounds like a shadow side to start with a day like this, but in order to add room, in order to make room for what we should know, what we should do, how we should be, we got to get rid of some shit. And so I'd like you to title your paper, if you're taking notes, like SISE, S-I-S-E, shit I should eliminate. start with worry. Useless energy and effort for no return. You see what I'm saying? I'm not just talking about the obvious, like I waste too much time watching TV or Netflix. That's a gimme. I'm talking about things that occupy you, that only you know, that are not serving you or the world around you. Because I'd love to have some space to add some things, which is what today is about. But before we can add, we've got to make room. Great equalizer between you and me is that we have 24 hours in a day. That's it. And we're not making any more time. It's how do we invest our time? How do we use our time? And are we doing it toward those things that are rich and on point and purposeful and meaningful, to where the marrow of life shows itself? And to get that full measure, it means putting to rout all those things that are not life. Those who know me know that I don't waste a minute. I don't waste a second. Kipling talks about the unforgiving minute. Wow. Go process that on a fishing boat all day by yourself. The unforgiving minute. Begging, pleading, all the money in the world. You're not buying the minute back. No forgiveness. It's gone. And therefore, having a sense of purpose and value around each and every minute is absolute standard in a day, in an hour, in a minute. If you'll waste a minute, you'll waste a day. And if you waste a day, you'll waste your life. I really believe it. And so being around people that have a sense of urgency and purpose is a whole different environment than those who are just like, what are you doing today? Oh, I don't know, whatever. What? I don't even know what to think when I hear that. Whatever? Like anything goes? Nothing is a possibility? No. Okay. So the tough questions. And I guess that's where this all starts, right? What is life to you? What is not life to you? We've got to start there. What's in our head? Wow. And when we talk that, we open a huge can of worms, because in your head is the you, the real you, your advocate. The providential voice that says, you've got this. I created you. Let's go. Let's live this life. And then there is the anti-you. The anti-you sounds just like you, same voice, but it's your adversary. It's the one that wants to keep you in sameness. And I'll tell you something, sameness is the enemy. I think it even says it somewhere right on the plane, right? Sameness is the enemy. If you look at your life today and it looks a lot like what it did last year, oh my God, I wish I could turn up the 400-volt shock machine and just blast you. Because that's a rut. Sameness. Sameness of mind. Sameness of attitude. Sameness of purpose. If nothing's growing and changing, it gets stagnant. It gets old. Pretty soon you can't drink the water. Growth is what it's about. And your advocate, that voice, that real you, is about growth. It's about living. It's about growing. And so measure that. I want you to think on that, okay? Everything we do and everything we don't do. What a statement. Think about it. Everything we do and everything we don't do comes from our belief system. Our belief system is installed at a really early age. We have influences around us. And wouldn't it be awesome if our influences, all of our influences were just on their game. They knew what they were doing. The people are a big influence. The surroundings, the environment around us, a big influence, right? Wouldn't it be amazing if as kids, somehow before you could even walk, you could get out the menu and say, this is the things I want to be influenced by. We'd all pick the right things. Unfortunately, we don't get that choice, and we get what we get. The problem is that oftentimes as adults, once that hardwiring is installed, we want for more, but our belief systems and the way we're hardwired don't allow for it. You want to win the Indy 500 race, but you're driving a mental Volkswagen Bug. You're not going to win as much as you want to and as much as you don't get it. And so your belief systems will dictate what's possible and what isn't. The good news is that as an adult, we get to go in and understand our belief systems. We get to ratify them. Maybe we need to remodel them. And maybe we need to rip them out and start all over. But we get to choose as adults. That's encouraging. We've got to go there. The influence that most forms us are the people in our lives. And as it relates to life, I won the lottery. I had a young mom and dad who wanted me and wanted my brother. And they wrung themselves out like a shop towel, giving everything they knew how to give. Now, were they perfect people? No. They didn't ever have dads, and they had alcoholic mothers. So they set their compass the opposite of everything they saw around them, which they knew would be a hell of a lot closer to the way they wanted us to be than the way they were raised. They made a choice that even though they were raised this way, they knew that there was a better way, so they set their compass that way and they moved forward. That was my mom and dad. They were born on the same day, the same hour, the same minute, the exact same age. One in Seattle, one born in Idaho. And as it turns out, history shows that they've known each other since they were 5 years old. They just didn't know that they knew each other, but they hung out together, each waiting for their mothers outside a tavern only a block away. That you were that little boy, and you were that little girl. Whoa. They never came together, though, until they were 18. They had no more questions within 2 weeks, and they got married. And in their vows, and I've read them, it says that we're going to do everything the opposite of what we learned and how we were raised. Well, they set their compass on change, and they gave us everything they got. I won the lottery with my mom and my dad. And this last 2 years, they both passed away. And we knew when one went, the other would be soon behind, because they were really, truly like one. I could tell stories of them all day, but I'm going to tell you one of my dad, because he was a major influence. 2 boys. He was tough. When he spoke, you listened. There's no question about it. But one time he got very different and out of character. Dad didn't show a lot of emotion. He was a strong guy. You know, he played football for the Washington Huskies, and he worked his butt off, and, you know, Big Raj, that's what he was called. And, but there was a day that I got to go elk hunting with him when I was young. I didn't have a rifle or anything, but I was going to get to tag along. And this is my first elk trip, and so I'm this little guy, and we go over, and whoa, everything was different. Set up the elk tent, this, that, and the other thing, and man, there's snow on the ground. And the protocol is with elk hunting is you get up at 3 a.m, you get your pack ready, you have some breakfast, and then by about 4 o'clock in the morning, you leave the tent in pitch black with a headlamp on, winds blowing sideways, frickin' cold. We've got about a foot of new snow, and we got to go about 8 miles before it gets light to be where the elk are. Evidently, there's a spot where they hang out in the morning. Well, here we go. And in the dark, we are cutting across this wide open canyon, cutting side hill, very steep side hill, and the wind is coming from bottom to up. And it's just flying these ice balls, these little ice BBs hitting the side of your face, and just like bees hitting your face. And the wind's blowing like 30, 40 miles an hour. And I'm trying to keep up with Dad with my headlamp. He's 6'4". He's got these big stride, and I'm running behind him in the snow. And right in the middle of the wind tunnel, right in the square of this open space on this side hill, he stops. It's 4:30 in the morning. He stops and he turns around and he gets down on one knee. I mean, there's a picture, Dad. I mean, he's as intimidating then as he is now, right? And he looks at me and goes, "Come here." And you can't hear, so I have to get really close and lean in. He goes, "Gregor, you see anybody?" And I said, "No, I haven't seen anybody." He goes, "That's because no one's here." I go, "Okay." It doesn't get any better than this. The reason no one's here, Greg, is because it's too damn hard to do what we're doing right now. He said, "Buddy, learn to love. Learn to love what nobody will tolerate, and the world is yours." And I swear to you, he had tears coming down his eyes. He was so happy, and they were like freezing on his face. My headlamp's looking right at him. I'm like, I've never seen my dad like cry from joy in my life. He was in his happy place. The uglier it got, nobody's getting out of their tent. Nobody's following us out here. He says, "Let's go. Let's go get this elk because nobody else is going to be there." And he was just joyful. And sure enough, we kept going for another couple hours. Right at about 6:45, 6:30, it starts getting light, and we're hiding behind this rock, looking down in this basin and the trees, and it starts getting light. And sure enough, here comes the milk out of these trees. And there was a bull, and he looks at me and kind of winks and lays down, and boom, that's it. Then I learned my next lesson. Happiness is packing meat. The mind and how we choose to operate. Is it possible that pain can be bliss? Is it? Is it possible that being alone at midnight on a job site and everybody else has been home, they've had dinner and they're already in bed, is it possible that that can make you laugh out loud? Because you're the only one doing it. And these mind choices we can make were like an open door for me to realize that success is about 85, 90% right between our ears. How we approach everything is really the key that starts the engine. Our belief systems, we get to choose. My parents were a huge influence, and I won the lottery. The next winner of the lottery was me again when I met A.B. Label. And I'm about 8 years old. I have no grandfather. My parents live up in the mountains, or had a cabin in the mountains, and A.B. owned all the property around it. I didn't know who A.B. was, but he was a very kind, 5-foot-tall Jewish man. And I got to know him, and he got to know me. And then he came up to me one day, and he said, "Greg, I understand you have no grandfather." I said, "No, I don't, A.B. My mom and dad didn't have dads that they ever knew." He goes, "Oh, that's a shame. That's a shame." He says, "Well, I would like to apply for the job." And I said, "Really?" He says, "I'll never be a blood grandfather, but I'll do my best. What do you say?" And I said, "Well, I think that'd be good." "Oh, well, then we have a deal." And he put his hand out, and we shook. Well, A.B. was the philosopher. Not only did he own over 3,000 units in Seattle that I later found out about, he was a real estate tycoon. But he was a philosopher. And I won the lottery with all of his teachings. There's literally file cabinet up in my den that has an entire file cabinet of yellow legal pads full of notes from AB, like this much, like I don't even know how many pages. He was an advocate that saw in me what I was just a kid. I didn't see it in myself, but he saw something in me that I didn't see. Who is that in your life? Are you blessed enough to have that? Somebody to push you and say, you've got this, that speaks like your real voice should speak to you. He did that for me. My freshman year at the University of Washington, I met Dr. Michael Shadow, another fortuitous mistake that ended up being this 6 years with Dr. Michael Shadow and a postgraduate work with him in the art form of negotiation. Dr. Shadow just passed away a couple months ago now. And I had this great relationship with him since I was 18 years old. The world's greatest teacher in the art form of negotiation. Amazing. Another influence that just worked out. And then, of course, there was Tom Newman, this savant, finance, numbers, deal structuring brainiac that couldn't finish a sentence. His brain moved so fast. And I would stalk him and ride with him and learn from him. And so as a young adult, these forces formed what I've known to be the groundwork of a belief system that was amazing. It's not that things didn't have to be rewired in certain cases. And changing your belief system is a very hard thing to do, and yet necessary. Necessary. When I started buying real estate, it was going well. I was a sponge. It's all I wanted to do. I would have changed my life to just be in front of a seller that day because I was just possessed with buying real estate. And I thought if I had enough dough someday, I was going to buy a Porsche, right? Every 18-year-old kid has to have a goal, and I like Porsches, you know. And so I decided I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it if I have the money. And all of a sudden, I sell a couple properties, and I get the slip through the drive-through, and I go, man, I got enough to buy a Porsche. And I just took off, went right down to University Porsche Audi, and there it was on the showroom floor, this unbelievable black 911, and I thought, that's it. That's the one I'm going to do. And the salesman came up like, what are you doing here? And don't touch the car. And, you know, had this Carhartt coat on. He was worried about the buttons hitting the car. And I don't know what went on there. But the more I stood there, the more nervous I got. I felt like somebody was watching me, like I was doing something wrong, you know, like what am I doing? You know, I just felt dirty or something. It was really, and I got so freaked out that I ran out of the place, got in my truck, and I drove about 2 blocks away and pulled off the street, and I started yelling at myself, what is going on? It's like I was shaking, you know, and I couldn't figure it out. And I remember yelling, you're not leaving here until you figure this out. I mean, I knew I wasn't sick. I didn't have the flu, but what am I shaking for? What is this all about? I didn't know what was happening. And I tried to unpack it. Have you ever tried to think about what you're thinking? God, thinking squared. I have enough trouble thinking, much less thinking squared, you know? And I'm like, yeah, this hurts. You know, what am I thinking? I don't know what I'm thinking. What is happening? But I calmed down enough to figure out that what I had in my mind is if I bought that Porsche at some point in the near future, I knew that my dad would find out. And I went, well, why am I worried about that? I'm an adult. I bought it with my own money. You know, nothing illegal about owning a Porsche. What's the problem, Greg? You see how you're digging to think about what you're thinking? And I went, well, my dad would be pissed. Why would he be pissed? Because I don't need it. And then I came up with this. I had a hardwiring from my dad that you should have anything that you need, and I mean need was underlined, if you work honestly and hard for it. need. But if you don't need it, you don't need it. My dad's cars all had over 400,000 miles on them. And they looked brand new because he took very good care of them. But you don't need one until it just won't work. You don't need shoes until they fall off your feet. That Pendleton shirt that he's wearing right in that picture, he was 87 years old when that picture was taken. And he bought that shirt for his own high school graduation when he was 17. And he just kept sewing it up. He gets snagged on a branch and this and that. You just keep sewing it up. You don't need another one. This one works just fine. You know, why do I need another shirt? Dad, they make things called Gore-Tex now. They're light, they breathe. This works just fine. I don't need another one. This is what I wear. Well, that was so ingrained in both my brother and I. And I remember sitting there going, okay, Greg, do you believe that? And I went, no, I believe I should be able to have anything I want if I work honestly and hard for it. And boy, just saying that, I was like, I'm glad my dad didn't hear me say that. But because it took some courage to just, in a sense, disagree with his philosophy. But I wrote it out. I taped it on my dashboard for like 2 months. I just said it many times a day. And I go, there, I got it. I'm owning it. It's now my belief. And I drove back down to University Porsche Audi and I bought a Porsche. And about 3 months after that, not really thinking, I thought I'd whip by, drop something off Mom and Dad's. And I did, and pull it up front and jump out, knock on the door. Dad answers. I go, hey, I just wanted to drop this off. He looks right over my shoulder. He goes, what's that? I go, what? The car. I go, oh yeah. Is that yours? I go, yeah, it's mine. How long have you had that? I don't know, a couple months. Did you need that? It's exactly what he said. That's a quote. And I said, no, I didn't need it. I just wanted it. And it's awesome. You should drive it sometime. And I walked by him to go say hi to Mom. And I thought, he's going to like grab me. I just know he didn't. Yeah, he was mad though. You know, I mean, hey, he had no help with his own hardwiring. And he was raised into depression. And you know, you can see that there was no need, was quite honestly a luxury, because many times he didn't have what he needed, like food. I don't blame him. But that was the first time I went in and actually altered a belief system. And like anything, when you open that door, here we go, right? And I went, what else? Because I really want to own my beliefs, not inherited beliefs. I want to think it out myself and own them. Well, that's a process, right? Great influences, though, in my adult years, and we become largely who we hang out with. And so we get to choose that, which is why it's so awesome that all these power players in one little spot, you guys need to know each other. They just couldn't spend time with better people. Our environment has a lot to do with this way we operate. I can tell you that as an adult, I've never had a home that I couldn't see 50 miles out the window, right? It's a choice. I won't live in a home if I can't see 50 miles, right? I've lived on the waterfront, on rivers, and on the Puget Sound, and because there's something about that environment that just makes my soul alive, right? The introvert, being out in the middle of the Sound on a boat in the middle of a storm, a small boat in the middle of a storm. I just laugh out loud, you know? When you're surfing white caps in a small boat out in the middle of the Sound, it's like, God, that environment has a lot to do with it, right? Right? Our experiences, we get to choose those. And early on, my life was about climbing tall mountains and being out in the middle of nowhere and scuba diving and flying airplanes and these things that they represent life to me on what you should put in your life. Because when you identify what moves you, what truly makes you feel alive, then you have to make that a part of your life, a big part of your life. And I did. And those moments and memories with great friends and family, they become a priority because once those things are in the bank, nobody can take them from you, right? Okay. Well, I've given this whole piece a lot of thought. And trying to make it something that I could pass on and teach. One night I remember sitting there and I'm just kind of drawing out my thoughts. And of course, it starts with your belief systems. We know that. But from there, what do the belief systems do? Well, they either open or close a door to possibility. Think about that. It's either possible or it isn't, based on your belief systems. From there, if it's possible, we can create intention around it. Intention says, I want that. It's possible, therefore I want it. And I mean, intention is a laser scope with a prone position. It's not, oh, I want to be happy. No. It's, I want this, and here's what I'm going to do. It's focused intention. You see, you can't get to intention without a belief system that opens the door of possibility. We will never pursue that's impossible. It stops right there. But if our belief system says it is possible, now we can say, and I want it. Once we say, I want it, once we have intention around it, that focused intention is going to show us opportunities to get what we want. A door is going to be open. When we commit with our intention, as Van Gogh says, providence moves too. When you commit, providence moves too. It gets off the bench and gets in the game. It's like, oh, you really know what you want. All right. And all of a sudden we see opportunity. Every day of my life, I hear people say, boy, I just can't find anything good. That could be in the way of real estate. It can be in the way of a partner. It could be in the way of anything. It's just not out there. Do you see how we have to back up and get back to, is it possible? Does your belief system say it's out there? Then we can go create intention around it. And when we've got intention, there's the opportunity. Intention is the woo-woo word in the English language. Books have been written about it. Whole genres of study, the law of attraction, have been written about intention. That when you really are locked on, Rumi would say, not only are you looking for it, it's looking for you. It's just like it's woo-woo. To me, I'm not a woo-woo guy. I think that the opportunity was always there, but we just didn't have the focus to see it. When we get really focused with our intention, it shows itself. Now the work starts. There's the opportunity. There it is. The next step around the circle is toolbox. And that's where I commend all of you. You've invested in your toolbox. You are students of the game. Not just with me, with anybody who knows anything about this. You're all over them. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about that. You know, you're educated. And so that toolbox is the ground school. And when we have those tools, both left and right brain tools, now all of a sudden we get results. This is the reward for commanding our beliefs, owning them, opening the door of possibility, creating intention, seeing the opportunity, earning the toolbox. Now we get results. And when we get results, what happens? Our belief system is an auto upgrade. You buy a sixplex and go, whoa, whoa, whoa. All I'd done before that was a house, sixplex. And you go, well, hell, I could buy 20 units and it wouldn't be any different than this. And the next thing you know, you're buying a 200 unit. The next thing you know, that's too small. So you start building them. And you see, every lap we go around, our belief system upgrades. And we create bigger possibilities and bigger intentions. And here we go. And if you think about this visual, this mindset model is what I call this napkin that I drew up. It paints a picture of a life that's upward and outward. Think about that. Think about seeing somebody that you haven't seen in a long time, but wow, they've changed and they look so good and they look so full. I talked to a guy last week, he lost 110 pounds this last year. Nobody even recognizes him. He says, it's so fun. Because people just go, whoa, you've changed. And I said, Brian, that's how we should greet any and everybody that we haven't seen in a year. Wow, you've changed. Wow, you've grown. You're a different person than the person I saw a year ago. Upward and outward, upward and outward. That's how it's supposed to work. That's the abundant life, I think, that God talks about. It's supposed to just get overwhelmingly amazing until we drop dead, and then it really gets amazing. That's what I believe. And yet, look around. Thoreau, the guy that went to the pond, he also wrote that most men lead lives of quiet desperation. Sameness, frustrated, the waiting place, as Geisel would say, the most useless place. Why is it that less than 1% live that kind of abundant life? Well, by the way, my name's Greg Pinio, and we're off to the races. I am privileged to work with the greatest entrepreneurs in this country. You couldn't name a city, and I wouldn't tell you what power player is stirring it up there, living an abundant life, leading the way, showing them how it's done, living a life of possibility lived. And so it's our mindset and how we believe and how it follows the whole track around to get results. Working on yourself is the greatest investment you'll ever make. And yet, do you realize that less than 3% ever spend a dime on education after they're 22 years old? Less than 3%. Like what? We knew it all when we were 22? We thought we did. That's the problem. We thought we did. No, we didn't know it all. We didn't know it all. Okay. If you're to think of that mindset model, the focus for most of our time today is going to be the toolbox. Now, the toolbox is a left and right brain toolbox. And I'm going to throw a lot of things at you about how I think about real estate, about how I think about finance, how I think about deal structuring. Then I'm going to throw a lot of things at you on the right brain side about how I think about the art form of negotiation, the science, the numbers, the left brain tactical structuring of a deal, and the right brain subjective liberal arts side of negotiation. Both have to be in tandem, both have to be refined to reach agreement that works. It's real easy to pencil something that works once you know all the tools. Getting a yes is a whole different achievement, you see? And the real estate entrepreneur has to be able to do both. And if you're weak in one area, you'll create a team around you. I just got done today. I had a 4 o'clock call where I was hired. I was hired to do the deal from start to finish. And because this wasn't their skill set, but they wanted to buy an impressive piece of real estate. So you're in charge. Do it from start to finish. And it recorded actually today. So congratulations, right? But to get to that end, to get to that closed place where something really makes sense and it's done well, it's a left and right brain. It's a science and an art. And so let's start that process. If you were in a class of mine literally 45 years ago, you'd stand on your desk at the last day and I'd say, class, the pillars. Can you imagine 600 kids standing on their desk? And I'd say, class, the pillars. And in unison, they would say terms, location, expandability. Well, to be honest, in my mind, with those three big terms, location, expandability, sure, lots of things have been added under those headings, but those three headings still say it all. They say it all. Let's start with the easiest one, which is location. Let's just not mess this up. Location is about demand. Everything we own has to be in demand. Now, could 50 acres out in the middle of nowhere be in demand? It sure as hell could if it had, 3-foot Douglas fir trees on it, right? You see what I mean? The resource can be in demand, not necessarily the dirt and the ground. It could be what's on it, could be in demand. But in the world of real estate, sticks and bricks, putting that sticks and bricks in a location where people want what you have, they need what you have, there is a economic use for what you have, the greater the demand, the more valuable the real estate. And people get this messed up. They chase deals that are out in the middle of nowhere and nobody needs them, nobody wants them, and they say, but what a great deal I got. No, you got a great deal that nobody wants. So what the hell did you really get? Nothing. Demand. And so I'm an infill guy. I'm a go to where it's already proven guy. I'm not the guy wondering where the next freeway off-ramp is going to be and hope that they come. That's speculation. I'm an investor. I want to go to demand. I want to go to control something that everybody wants. And is that easy? No, it's not. And we'll get into ways of stirring up that opportunity to, once you have it under contract, you're in the driver's seat, because all you got to do now is get the word out. And believe me, you're going to have your monies, you're going to have your tenants, you're going to have your buyers, you're going to have everything you need. Everything follows demand product. And so the greater the demand, the greater the real estate. And I'll tell you, when you learn deal structuring and you learn finance, it can become very, very tempting to, wow, I see properties every week, somebody throws at me, and of course you can negotiate amazing terms because they have to get rid of it. Nobody wants it, right? And isn't that great? You just bought this thing on all these amazing terms, but nobody wants it. So what do you got? Nothing. Demand is what drives this ship. Location is all about demand. Let's go to the next one, which is in reverse, expandability. Now, wow. Expandability, simply put, is change the picture. Now, why is this not letting me just there? It's left hand. See, it only knows my right. It's changing the picture. When I think expandability, I immediately go to zoning. Zoning is something that has to be a part of your bloodstream as a real estate entrepreneur. Zoning is what's allowable in that location. The city, the county says, here's what you can do here. And zoning is a moving target, right? It's not just one and done, changing all the time. And therein lies an opportunity. Because when zoning is going from X to a different zone that might be a better zone or a more dense zone, that change of zone creates a value change just in the zoning use change. One form of changing the picture, one form of expandability is simply a zoning use change. And I've taken property that's residential zoned and turned it to, through a zoning use change, to high density multifamily zone. Well, what used to be a house is now 6 units you can put on the same piece of property. That 6-unit property is going to be more valuable than just a single family lot, for rudimentary example. Zoning has published current zoning, and then there's always, with cities and counties, a published comprehensive plan. It's the 3-year, the 5-year, the 10-year. Here's where we've already voted we want zoning to go. Well, overlay those two maps, and any entrepreneur can see opportunity, right? You just overlay the two and go, wow, look at this. This agricultural zone piece of property is going to, 20 units an acre. Holy smokes. What the heck, right? Well, wouldn't it be great to buy or option this property in its current zone, go in and apply for zoning use change? The hearing examiner will always vote towards the comprehensive plan. And all of a sudden, boom, $1,000 later, you've changed the zoning before you've even closed the property. So expandability changed the picture. It can be within a zone. Here's a single family house, but it's on a 20-unit zoned multifamily piece of property. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to buy the house, get rid of the house, and build 20 units. And by the way, if that intimidates you in any way, shape, or form, I want you to use the word contractor versus builder. A builder has a nail belt and tools and skill saws, and he builds. A contractor writes contracts and enforces them. And some of the greatest students I have are, females in their high heels who are contractors. They're not on a job site with boots cutting lumber. Not that they maybe not wouldn't want to do that occasionally, but they don't. They contract. And so contracting something like that, anyone can do. It's just learning how to do that and changing the picture from a house to a multiplex. It can be as simple as buying a single family house and going in and doing a nice remodel, and poof, we've changed the picture. That's expandability, right? Expandability has endless faces to it, but it means changing the picture to a better and more economically viable end result. That's what it means. And expandability can be very, very creative. I just love the creativity that this power player community, it's just every single day I hear of things, I go, whoa, that's just awesome. The latest being, a piece of property, this ugly 1/3 underwater Florida swampland, right? Between Fort Myers and Venice that was bought, so like 300 acres, just cheap property, because what do you do with it, right? What do you do with it? Well, you get out a dozer and you make trails through it and mud bogs through it and build a little fire pit and a little stage, and then you make think of like a ski area except for ATVs, and then you charge people $250 for the weekend to come in and race their equipment around this swampland. Look it up. Redneck Yacht Club. I'm not kidding you. I had to see it to believe it. And the vehicles are lined up down the street for 2 miles to get in, $250 a head. These people fill a motorhome up. They've got their flatbed trailer with all these ATVs on it, and they just pay cash. and they go in and they sign a huge release and they just go rip around this acreage. And then at night, they've got the big bonfire and mud wrestling and all this crazy shit. I mean, I'm going, it's entrepreneurship. But he took a piece of worthless property and turned it into a huge income producing business, right? I love real estate because there's no one face. There's a single family house and you go, wow, look at how that's built. And then you see a picture of Dubai at night and you go, what the hell? It's all real estate. It's all contracting. There's no ceiling to what can be done. And that's the beauty of it. That's why it's kept my full attention for 50 years. Is it's like, it's just always evolving. Think about it. 12 years ago, we didn't know what Airbnb was, right? Now it's the largest controller of real estate in the world, right up there with the Catholic Church, for crying out loud. You know, I mean, it really is that big. And nobody knew what it was. Now there's yurts in the backyard renting for $80 a night. You know, you go, what? Who'd have thought? Well, somebody opened the can of worms and here it comes. They're come crawling out everywhere. And now you've got pad split and you've got all these platforms that are reinventing how real estate can be monetized. There's so many ways to go at it, all under this heading of expandability, changing the picture to a more economically viable vehicle. Okay? And I love how deep that can go. But here now is the heartbeat of the equation. Yeah, expandability is awesome. And for sure, location is got to be in demand. But under this heading of terms, that one word, we could be here for 2,000 hours. We literally could be here all year long, every single day in a master class on finance, deal structuring, and terms. And you got to know, even though I think I've forgotten more than most people know about this topic, it's still very intimidating to say, what do I do in effectively about 2 hours under this heading that's going to help you, that's going to get you somewhere, that's going to make you think about this differently? Because every real estate deal lives or dies with the deal structuring and the finance package that was created in association with it. It is the heartbeat of the real estate transaction. Now, I'm not meaning to step on any toes because there's a lot of people have different hats under the umbrella. But again, my experience of going to real estate investment groups all over this country, if you ask people, so what do they do? What do they do in real estate? What is their version of being a real estate investor? Do you know that 90+% of every group I've ever talked to, here's the model. Here's the model. Find an undervalued single family house. Might be a duplex or triplex or fourplex. Find undervalued. Now, what does undervalued mean? Well, I don't know because it's as valuable as what somebody would pay for it, but it usually is on some adversity list. They hunt the adversity list. You know, the dead, dying, the pre-foreclosure, the foreclosure, the probate, the bankruptcy, the divorce, that list, the published shit list. And they go to the published shit list, they try to hook into something undervalued. Then they go get a hard money loan, including what they need to rehab it with. And they get that loan, they buy what they think is an undervalued property, and then they get a broker to list it for them, and then they sell it. And if I were to give you a summary of how that goes most of the time, in order of money made, the hard money lender, he's going to make a lot of money. Makes a lot of money. The real estate broker's getting paid based on the sales price, whatever that is, so they're going to make a lot of money. some of the contractors that worked on it are going to make a wage. You know, they're going to get what they bid it for. And the seller, buyer, owner, seller, gets a good education. That's what they call it. And if that is somebody's version of real estate investing, then I got to tell you just got to, like the Etch-a-Sketch, just shake your head until there's nothing left in there, and let's start over. Because that is never going to create wealth. It's going to eventually, it's just a matter of time, it's going to put you out of business. That's not what real estate investing is about. Real estate investing has principles within it that are critical to creating a wealth equation out of real estate investing. One principle of wealth is leverage. And if we come in with all of our capital, even if it's our after-tax dollars coming in, that's the wrong approach. We're only going to be able to do so much with our capital. We have to employ our capital as minimum as possible to tie up and do the project that we need to do. We need to learn how to borrow money correctly, not use our own money. The second concept that we have to understand is that owning real estate and holding it is a whole different process than selling it. When we sell it, we're back to square one. We're buying more real estate and we're paying tax on the sale, especially if it's short term. Owning and holding allows us to allow this asset to grow and to extract from the equity and the cash flow. When we borrow against equity and cash flow, that formula of leverageable equity, how much can I borrow against a piece of real property not to exceed the equity or the cash flow? How much can I borrow to allow me to buy more real estate correctly? Leverageable equity is at the heartbeat of the wealth equation. Owning real estate, leveraging it to buy more real estate. Not just any real estate, buy real estate with the right kind of terms. We'll get into that. Scalability comes into the equation. To take energy and effort and focus on a home, there you are, you show up, you do all this work on a home. If you can keep it, rent it for a positive cash flow, you've got one unit. You raise rent on one unit. At some point, when you add scalability to your thinking, the same exact process can be done on 100 unit or on a 100,000 square foot commercial building or on a 200 pad RV park or a mobile home park or a parking lot or anything that there's multiple checks coming in from. That scalability in anything is going to change the overall equation. This is one of those mindset shifts that I really work at when I get to work one-on-one with somebody to say, okay, I'm going to tell you that what you just did, the whole process of going through this duplex to create 2 units that create this much positive cash flow, this is well structured, it went great. Now, our next objective is a 20 unit. Then it's a 200 unit. It's the same exact process. But when you add scalability, here's a 200 pad RV park and you raise rents by $50 a month, you just made $2 million. Boom, at a very conservative cap rate. I mean, it's a different process. And so scalability has to come in. Now, let's back up. Those are the big ones. Why the leverage? Well, return on investment, ROI, is a function of what our capital is into the deal. If I have 100% finance transaction in some form, You cannot calculate an ROI because I have no money into it. It's an infinite return on investment. You see, the more capital I put in, the lower the ROI. It's just that simple. Doesn't matter what the end number is. The more capital, the lower the ROI. And so when I've got my eye on those sorts of things constantly as being a go, no go criteria toward what I do and what I don't do, I'm now fishing in the right pond. I'm only going after things where I can control the physics of wealth, if that makes sense. Okay? I've got to be in control of all aspects of the terms equation to be in control of my asset. You know, let's say you bought a piece of property, you put 30% down, you got a bank loan, it's on an adjustable rate mortgage due in 5 years, like 99% of the world seems to buy, right? Who's in control? Are you in control of that asset? You see what I mean? Are you going to change the adjustment of the 11th district cost of funds or LIBOR or T-bills or whatever it's tied to? Do you have any control over that? None. Zero. Do you have any control over values over time? None. And all of a sudden 5 years is up and you've got to cash out this note. What happens? Well, if you hit the wrong timing, people just hand their asset back. It's lost value, they hand it back. Control. It's why I struggle with being a small part of an LP in some syndication, because I'm not in control. I'm not in control. My vote means nothing, right? People say, oh, I like being an LP because of its passive income. Well, passively watch your money lose. I don't like doing that. I don't like that. I want to be in control of the asset. I want to have a vote. And in order to have a vote that's meaningful, you got to know what you're doing. And so this is where that toolbox comes in. You don't start there, but start with your knowledge that allows you. You don't start flying a plane like this. You start in a much more simple plane that allows you to know that, and you step your way into, with knowledge, bigger things. But being in control is huge. The terms of the note, oh my God. Again, a discussion that could last a lifetime. I want, in this climate, and right here now, this is a here and now. Oh, no signal. Did we just cut everybody off? I'm looking at the TV. That doesn't look good. Hi, no signal. The idea of control is that I understand the asset, I understand the asset class, I understand the process, and I understand the financing of that. The terms of financing, I understand, and I'm in control of them. Boy, just for fun, I gave a lecture once to a room of 100 real estate agents, and I said, how many here own a home? And most all of them did. And I said, great, okay, I'm gonna pass out a little quiz. It's a closed book quiz, don't look at your neighbor, and I want to ask you some questions. I asked them also if they had a mortgage against their home, a bank loan. Yes, they all did, okay. And I asked them the most basic questions you could ask about the note and the deed of trust, or the note and mortgage that they've signed. Like, what is a full reconveyance? I mean, I got to tell you something. It was embarrassing. Grading these papers was embarrassing. Absolute embarrassing. We don't read and become competent with the things that we do every day. How is that possible? I want us to understand finance so well. When I think in terms of borrowing money, which almost every real estate transaction involves borrowing money. Some people will pay all cash, that's it, but even their cash sometimes is home equity line of credit that they draw from. It's not their cash, but it seems like an all cash transaction. When we borrow money, I want to be in control of some things. One, I want to really, really know the beneficiary. Now that sounds so subjective. Who's the beneficiary? If they are a professional lender, especially a professional hard money lender, you can bet they know what they're doing. When they know what they're doing, it'd be like fighting somebody. If they have black belt degrees in 4 martial arts and you've never been in a gym in your life, you're going to get hurt. They know more than you do. And so don't play in a field where somebody knows more than you do, right? If you're going to go get a bank loan, you better know it better than your banker. You better ask 100 questions on it. You better take out a highlighter and read that thing cover to cover, that collateral agreement, because people don't. They just don't even know what they have signed. Oh, I got a loan. I don't really know what the terms are at all. So know your stuff. I go and create private notes. I believe in it. I believe in it from everybody's perspective. Oftentimes, the maker, the beneficiary of that note is the seller themselves. But it doesn't have to be the seller. It's an individual who's lending money, who has goals and objectives of what they want to do in their life, and I can align what I'm able to give them with their goals and objectives. We create a transaction. But in the world of buying real estate, one of the things I look for sure, is that I want to involve the seller in at least 40% of that purchase financing. And just for round numbers, let's do it, right? If it's a $100,000 house, I want them to be involved in it, a $40,000 note or more. They become the beneficiary of the note. I become the maker of the note. At least 40%. Now, why? Because if I can negotiate their involvement with 40% of the note, I've set myself up to get a very reasonable loan from anyone else, especially if that seller become beneficiary will allow the collateral for their note to either be in a second position on that subject property or in a position on a different property. Lenders, conventional lenders, much prefer first position. Okay, it's not that I won't use a conventional lender if I can get a normal interest rate. I don't know if we need their money for a year or two. I'm happy to do that. I need the financing to match my intention for the property. If it's something I'm doing something to and going to sell it, which I don't particularly love to do that, but if it is, I don't need 20-year financing to do that. I want long-term financing when I'm involving a private party. Can't always get it, but I want it. The deal I put together today had a 10-year note, a commercial deal, a 10-year note. First 40 months, 5%. Next 40 months, 5.25%. Next 40 months, 5.5%. Average interest over 10 years, 5.25%. That's really great for a commercial building, right? A 10-year note involving the seller in financing. The note, the promissory note. I want you to think about that word. It's a promise. It's a promise to pay. You become the maker of that note. You are promising to pay at these terms and conditions a certain amount, at a certain interest rate, a certain payment structure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I want to go back to the word promise. It's a big deal. Don't promise what you can't deliver. So be very, very careful that what you're promising you can do. When a seller is asking too much for their property, especially an income-producing property. And they want to be involved in the financing. They want to be the beneficiary of a note. That's a great scenario, but they want too much for the property. I can go to them and I can say, listen, you and I essentially are going to become partners in a business, aren't we? Right? You're going to be selling me this property and you're going to be the beneficiary of a note. I'm going to be the buyer of the property and I'm going to be the maker of the note. But what I'm buying here is a business. It has income and it has expense. And there's only so much left after you collect the rent and you pay the bills. There's only so much left to pay you. If you're asking me to pay you more than this business can generate, this business is going to fail. And when the business fails, that's bad for me and it's bad for you. We have to create something that is sustainable so that you can defer your capital gains with an installment sale. You'll have a perpetual income stream. I have a successful business that's going to be able to cover its bills. You see, that's where we have to come to. Now, there's a little bit of right brain negotiation in that. You've got to have a receptive audience that has a sense of fairness and doing right. Not everybody does. Some people could give a shit if it's fair for you. They just want what they want. I don't deal with them. I want a sense of fairness. And when people have a sense of fairness, that kind of logic, when you're buying an income-producing asset, works very, very well. Let's talk interest rate. 45 years ago, if you came to my class at the university, I'd hand you an amortization book. I'd ask you, how many toilets do you have in your house? You'd tell me, and I'd give you 1, 2, sometimes 3 books. I said, for the entire quarter, I want these on the tank of your toilet. And when you go to use your toilet, I want you to grab the book, sit down, do your business, and I want you to memorize this book. When you study interest and you see its overall effect and how interest can be structured, it'll blow your mind. When you have a visceral, memorized feeling of interest, not only will a number come to your head, but you'll realize that, oh my God, you know, if I only paid this much more, I could pay this thing off in 7 years, right? That sense of amortization, that sense of how interest works, that sense of I could start at this rate and then step to here as my cash flow in the property allows me. I don't need to go right to the fixed rate permanent number forever, right? Let's start here and allow us to get ahead of the plane with our cash flow. Then we'll move to here a little bit. And then we'll level off here and always at a rate that you feel is going to, over the term that you're negotiating, be superior to what you could get anywhere else, right? Why do I want to negotiate terms south of normal? Because I want to be able to hand terms over and charge for my terms, not just my real estate. I want to make money on the debt. And we'll get into that with different structures. The deal structure that allows me to make money on my negotiated terms, not just on the equity and expandability on the sticks and bricks. This is huge. And so knowing intuitively interest rates and principles and know it in your head. If I said, okay, I would expect you to answer me in a matter of seconds, right? But if I were to say, you know, $400,000, I want to make an interest-only payment at 3% every single month. What's my payment? I need you to say $1,000 so fast your head spins. You can't even think about it. How, do you train your mind to know interest rate and principal and what that is instantly? Because when you're negotiating with somebody, if you get out a calculator and say, hang on, let me check this out, what you're saying is, hold on, let me see what's good for me. You don't want to do that. You need to make these decisions in your head while talking dogs and bird hunting, right? It has to be that intuitive. And there's ways of learning math that it's not math, it's English, it's listening, it's processing, it's visualization. Those are ways of knowing math at a different level. Is it possible? Let's go back to what you believe is possible. Is it possible to have a seller involved in $2 million of financing, and the interest rate that you've agreed on for a 20-year term is 3.5%? Is that possible? You see, hanging around entrepreneurs who are doing deals and the group you hang around, that would cure your skepticism really fast, because deals like that are done every single day in my community, every single day. Zero interest deals for 3 years. I mean, all sorts of variations of terms that the world would say nobody would do that. You see how belief, you won't even ask for it. You won't even try to get it if you think it's impossible. And so being around people doing those kinds of things is really important for your life. Interest is a huge negotiation. Term, right here, right now, maybe the greatest negotiation you could put in any real estate transaction right now is term. You want to know why? Where are things going to be in 3 years from now? Go ahead, tell me. You see what I mean? There is no pre-existing momentum going on right now. We are in a swirl right now. We don't know if we're coming or going. And I'm not talking politics. I'm just talking, here it is. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And when things look very confusing like they are right now, time and cash flow is how you live through an asset. And cash flow is a function largely of interest rate. I've got to really negotiate great interest rates and term. I need 10 years. I need 10 years to be able to see where this thing is going, to see where a cycle might kick in. If you were asked, where are we in the cycle right now? God, John and I have been at this for frickin' forever. It was always 7 to 10 year cycles. Where are we now? Are we going? We coming? What's happening? You know, we don't really know. Aviation has a term like this. It's called the cone of confusion. Are you going to it or are you going away? Who knows? Just fly the heading and keep it airborne. You'll see soon enough, right? Well, term is what's going to allow for that. 10 years minimum, 15, 20, long as you can get at a reasonable rate. What's reasonable? Under 6%. Under 6%, you should be able to negotiate long-term money right now. Well, I know you can do that. You know you can do that. I'm talking to, nobody's on the screen right now. I'm hoping they're listening. Anyway, I'm talking to them. It's there. It's there. Okay. Long-term notes for sure. And I can just hear when I say things like that. People, especially seasoned veterans who've only and ever done bank financing and this is how we do things, I can hear them saying, there's no way that kind of loan is out there with any individual. And I'm telling you, one just recorded today. So you're wrong. It's how do you go at that? How do you find it? How do you negotiate it? That is the skill set, both left and right brain. Keeping with the note. Keeping with the note. There's a lot involved here. Do you have the ability to negotiate what I call a slice and dice clause, an exchange of note clause? What good is a substitution of security clause if it's a $2 million note, right? You need the ability to take a note and slice it up into smaller notes. And with that ability, your collateral agreement, it could have an initial collateral with the subject property, but the ability to substitute the collateral to a different property is a huge negotiation. A matter of fact, if I were to put in like 30 seconds, something that I wish every real estate entrepreneur could take out to deep ocean. And I mean, just go think about it, nothing more for 2 weeks. Think about it. write about it, process the ramifications, that if you can move the collateral for a note from one property to another, you've just changed the game in such a major way. I promise you, at first glance, you won't get it. But when you really stay with it, and you dance with it, and you sleep with it, and you keep thinking about it, it will change everything about real estate investing, because now we're not really buying real estate. We're negotiating debt. The real estate initially came with it, but it doesn't need to stay with it. This isn't like a long-term marriage. It's dating. And you decide, I want to keep the debt. It's a $2 million note at 4%, no fees. I don't want to pay off that debt, but I want to get rid of the real estate. Well, let's substitute the collateral. What do I need to do that? I need a property with at least enough equity to support the debt. Got to have $2 million in this case of equity. I need a property with enough positive cash flow to support the payment of the debt. Let's say this was a 3% note, $2 million, 3%. What's the payment? See, bam, I want you to be able to do that instantly. I've got to have that. Well, what happens if I don't have that one property with that much equity, with that much cash flow? The slice and dice clause. Now I take this $2 million note and I make 10 $200,000 notes. And I send them off home to my portfolio where I've got 200,000 here and 200,000 there and 200,000. Do you get the idea? And now the property I want to sell that initially had the debt has no debt. And now I sell it and there's no debt to pay off, nor is any capital gain, because I sold it for what I paid for it. I didn't buy it because I wanted the property. I bought it because I wanted the debt. I knew who would buy the property from me, had them in my hip pocket. It was a demand piece of real estate. A lot of people would want this. I just said a lot in a short period of time. And quite honestly, this group that I'm in front of has memorized this. And so you're all going, yep, we know that, Cap. Take it to the streets. You'll see eyes just glossy over. They won't know what the hell you're talking about. But if they did, this is a game changer. It truly changes the whole playing field, because if left to just the equity, the sticks, the bricks, the value add that I can bring to a property, if that's all the money I ever made in real estate, I'd be real successful. But times that by 3, that when I make money by making money on my negotiated debt, I've now started a whole separate business. Can you feel that? It's like a whole different thing. A whole different thing. Let's just play with some numbers here. Let's say I negotiated a note for $1 million at 3%. Now, you think that can't be done? I've heard of 3 of those deals in the last week. About that number, and at almost exactly that interest rate. One was 3.5. Okay? I've got $1 million at 3%. Okay? I decide to substitute the collateral and move it to a hold asset that I have, and then sell the property. Now I have $1 million cash from selling that property, no capital gain. I sold it for what I paid for it, but I have $1 million cash. But there's a clock ticking. It's costing me 3%. Even though it's over here on a different property, I've got that in my ear. It's costing me 3%. I want you to think of that as my cost of funds. I'm a bank of Greg at 3%. Now let's just say that I lent that out at 9%, which, could you lend that $1 million at 9% in about 5 minutes intelligently? Of course you could. Let's just say I did. That's a 6-point margin. Let's say there was no fees involved, no penalties, no anything. It's just 6 points on $1 million. Do you see what I'm making on my borrowed money every single year, passively? Well, I wouldn't lend it out at 9%. It's just as an example. That would be like 18 on the default menu, right? There's ways I'm going to make a lot more than that. Let's explore this. Let's say I took the $1 million and put $100,000 down on $1 million building 10 times. It's $10 million with the assets. That million, that represents a 10% down to $10 million worth of assets. Do you see? And within those assets, several of those assets have notes that also have moving parts. Do you see how the game board of notes, rates, and term starts moving all over your portfolio and allows you to buy more real estate? Remember the 90% of every real estate group I've talked to? You remember how they do real estate? Remember that one? Okay. That is, I don't even know what game that is, but it moves up from there to a more complicated game called checkers. Okay. What I'm playing is chess. It's 2- and 3-dimensional game boards originating from an asset. It's not monetizing the asset just in hard work, dirt, sticks, and bricks, value add. It's making money on negotiated debt. And in order to negotiate those kinds of things, you have to understand finance like your bloodstream. That's the toolbox. That's the ground school. That's the hard work. There's no way to sidestep that. You won't bullshit your way through a finance discussion, ever. And to watch that transition from this kind of real estate of 20 or 30% down, get a bank loan, get a hard money loan, that kind of real estate, to watch the transition to we are hunting for equity to create notes. At least 40% of this acquisition is going to be financed with the seller, and we're going to have a note that's at a low interest rate with movable collateral. I've watched it right here in this group, that transition take place, and it changes everything. It changes everything. And I'd love nothing more if we had all week long, I'd simply just pass the mic. How many stories could you tell, Jesse, Patrick, Aaron, Jim, Michael? I swear, I don't believe that people realize that when you know this, it changes everything, but it does. Okay, so the terms of our agreement. Now, let's talk just briefly. How does this play itself out in the world of what we call deal structuring? Well, deal structuring starts with a huge interview. It starts with understanding the property owner, the seller, and exactly what they're trying to do. We've got to understand what they're trying to do. Then we have to understand the realities of where they are. Where are they at with this property? What is their basis? What kind of capital gains exposure do they have? Are they trying to buy more real estate? Are they done? Are they checking out? What is their situation? What is their timing? The seller. Think about that whole equation you've got to solve. But then think about what your plan is with this property. Let's say this is a house on a 4 acres that could be, a development, a land development. Okay, well, that particular project has all kinds of steps to it, all kinds of waypoints, all kinds of time frames to get from step to step, and influxes of cash to get from here to here to here. And so you've got your plan, and that's moving forward in a timeline, and the seller and their plan, and that moving forward. There's 2 huge considerations going on. They have to be woven together in a deal structure to get them everything they want and yet pave the way for everything that you need and want as your project moves forwards, as your expandability gets played out. It can't be just solving one thing and then you're stuck, right? Oh, I'm going to give you all your money in 6 months. Great, where are you going to get it? With this, go ahead. You see, it's got to be this, and the deal structure here solves the obligations here and here. That's what deal structuring is about. It's about getting two entities everything they want in one deal, sensitive to the future. And when you start thinking toward the future, you don't think about what I need to just close this. You think about the full project as a whole, all the way through stabilization. And sometimes in the world of large real estate projects, that could be 3 to 5 years before you get things stabilized and performing. And it's got to have the ability financially to get there. Most projects that die and fail run out of money because somebody didn't deal structure it right from the beginning. So deal structuring, the bigger the project, the more structuring is needed to see this thing landing, okay? Okay. We've talked a little bit about that. Your capital needs, timeframes, releases, right? You know, the unencumbering of property to be able to borrow against it. How many properties, you know, where I say, okay, well, there's a little crappy house and I'm going to buy this house and I'm going to build, you know, a dozen units on it, a multiplex, let's say. Well, if I'm going to go borrow money to build that multiplex, if I'm going to do that with some kind of conventional loan that rolls into permanent, right? That lender is going to be in first position. I guarantee it. The other thing the lender is going to want is skin in the game. So how do I provide that? A free and clear lot provides skin in the game, doesn't it? And so I could buy that property where the initial collateral isn't the subject property. The initial collateral is a performing property. How do I justify that to the seller that's selling it to me? I don't want to collateralize your note with this property that I'm buying from you. I want to collateralize it over here. Well, think about it. Think about it. I'd simply say, listen, it would be wrong of me to collateralize this note with this property, because this property, I'm going to destroy the house that's here. There's going to be no income stream coming in off of this property. What if I get hit by a bread truck, right? Now who's going to make your note payment every month? However, if we collateralize it over here, there's plenty of equity in this property. It's a performing asset. It's a slot machine and a sewing machine all at once. If I got hit by a bread truck, this property will make your payment every single month. Ethically, this is the better place to collateralize your note, not a house that I'm going to tear down that has no income stream on it. And not to mention, I'm removing your collateral. That's not good. Do you see, there's always a way to frame the proposition to where it benefits, in this case, the note holder, the seller, the beneficiary. But now, at closing, I have a free and clear asset to be able to go borrow against from a bank or anyone else the money I need to scrape this house and build 12 units. You see, that's deal structuring, thinking the next move. And when you play chess, you don't think about, oh, I got you, I'm going to take this. No, you ask yourself, if I move here, sure, I'm going to get your guy, but then what are you going to do to me? And you hold on to that piece and go, what are you going to do next? And you think 2 or 3 moves ahead. You don't let go right away. You really study it, right? That's deal structuring. It's playing chess. Okay? Okay. All right. I want to go through some, I almost hate to call it this because I'm trying to think in the language. Let's say there's a refrigerator full of 30 ingredients. In order to know what I could make out of this refrigerator, I would have to really know each ingredient really well. Does that make sense? And sometimes with these ingredients, when I really understand them, there's a lot of different things I can make. There's a lot of different deal structures I could come up with the ingredients that are in my toolbox, in my refrigerator, right? Well, I'm going to go through a few things that will come up in your world of deal structuring if you pay attention. These are just things that you're going to run into where you go, that tool in this situation will work really well if applied correctly. Don't you love, by the way, the sound of the rain on this hangar? I had a ranch for 30 years up in the mountains that had a metal roof, no attic, just open like this. I would sleep like I was in a coma. It was so awesome. And the harder it rained, I could feel my eyeballs sucking back in my head. I just love it when it rains this hard in the hangar. I hope they can hear us. Well, if you can't hear us, we're still having fun here. All right. Okay. One of the tools you're going to look for is the tool of the assumption. The assumption, taking over somebody's position in a debt. Now, a lot of loans are not assumable, but a lot are. And so I'm always looking for that. I'm looking. People think, okay, I got to sell this and I've got to cash this out. Well, do they or don't they? I'm going to ask that question. If they don't necessarily have to cash it out, and especially if it's in the best interest of the beneficiary that they're paying to not cash it out, I'm going to get in, and sometimes I've been able to renegotiate my own loan, not with the seller, but with who they bought it from. Let it go. See, we must be, this is God's way of saying you're right on track. Let me join in. God's getting excited right now. I love it. Okay. So keeping your eyes peeled for that and not assuming it's going to be cashed out. A deal I did once had a loan of about $2.5 million. It was an all-cash deal because they had to cash this out. And I said, well, tell me about the underlying loan. Well, what do you want to know? Well, I want to know, who's it with? Well, it's with a person. Well, right out of the gate, I've got hope, right? If it was with Bank of America, I've lost hope, right? It's a person. Well, I said, do you mind if I call them and just chat with them about the possibilities here? And I called them and said, listen, I'm thinking of buying this property. They owe you this much money. Yeah. And they're thinking that you want to cash out. I've learned that that's not necessarily always the best thing. He goes, they're thinking of cashing me out? Oh, God, no. And it's like, ding, 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 ding. And not only was I able to assume it, in the assumption, I was able to renegotiate the terms of the note. And so, although I'm not dealing with the seller becoming the beneficiary, I'm dealing with who they already have been a good client of, right? And so I was able to go in, renegotiate the terms, long term, adjusted the interest rate downward, and they said, great, that's a lot better than paying a bunch of capital gains, right? So that works. The world of options. These are things you've got to just know, in, out, left, and right. The option is the most underutilized tool in the real estate toolbox. God, and I swear, and I'm confessing, I've done a lot of options, not nearly as much as I think I should. Because securing that right to buy a property in the future at a certain price and terms and strike, we don't have a crystal ball. But there's one thing for sure, that if we can control the three pieces of the option has three components. One, consideration. Now, consideration is good and valuable consideration. It doesn't even have to be money. I've given someone the title of a vehicle as my consideration, a vehicle that was just sitting doing nothing. Here's my consideration. And you would associate a price value to it, but it wasn't money, it was a car, okay? Consideration's got to be good and valuable and given and received. The second thing is that there's got to be a window of when you can exercise your option. The window has a start date and an end date. Here's your window to exercise. And then it has price and or terms. And when I say price and or terms, at least it has to have price, but it can also have attached to it the terms that you've already pre-negotiated when you exercise your option. And you simply attach a purchase and sale agreement with all of the signed terms. You just don't date it, and it becomes recorded with the option. That option tool all by itself is just an amazing tool in real estate. You know, at the base, a pure option, the language of that option, the buzzer that should go off in your head is that, yeah, I do want to sell, but not yet. When you hear that, you hear option. I have a need for a small amount of money and I have no idea where I'm going to get it. Do you own real estate? How about I give you this money for an option to buy your real estate in the future? These are all situations that cue the option as being a tool that you may want to use. A lease option, also a real powerful tool, especially for an owner user. How many times have I negotiated on behalf of a client who needs a space for their business, right? And they need 10,000 feet of warehouse to run their business. And rather than just leasing it, they lease it with an option to buy it, where a portion of their lease every month goes to consideration, right? And if you can get a long enough lease and a strike price that looks like today's value, wow, I've had it where the actual acquisition 10 years later at the price we negotiated back here made more money than the business made all 10 years it was in business. Just to buy the property for what it was worth here versus what it's worth in 10 years, that difference of equity was more than the business made in 10 years. Think about that. So the lease with an option, owner users. Think about anybody that has a franchise. One of your great power players is now making a transition. He's up to, I don't know, 12 or 13 stores, franchise shops, stores, his little franchise, 1,500 feet. Well, he's going now to buying the buildings and then having his presence in the building, but buying the whole building. Well, you think of a store like one of the Northwest favorite companies is Les Schwab Tire, right? Well, what people don't realize is that Les Schwab Tire, you know, if they lease something, it's always with an option to buy, always. And most of the time they buy and build their own facility and pay for it with the tire store. And so after he started in 1958, you know, when they went public 4 years ago, they had 880 stores, all free and clear, right? So the real estate became as big a play as the business itself. And so McDonald's, perfect example of when they went to controlling the land. that was the game changer, right? They weren't just making money off hamburgers now. Now they were tying up the land, owning it, and then in a franchise, you'd be leasing the land from them, and the lease would pay off the land, and they would own the land free and clear to everybody that opened a McDonald's restaurant, right? So, you know, controlling the real estate, lease with options, really important. Wrap notes, the note collateralized by an all-inclusive trust deed. Once again, a calling that you can make money on simply the terms. How do you buy a house for $400,000, sell the exact same house for $400,000, and make $100,000? Well, it's not on the equity. It's not on anything you did to it. You didn't do anything to it, right? You bought it for $400 and you sold it for $400. But you bought it at $400 on a note at 3%, and you sold it at $400 on a note at 9%. And there's the difference. A note collateralized by an all-inclusive trust deed. That wrap note tool is huge, both as a buyer and a seller. buyer and a seller. Great tool. Anytime you can involve the seller in that 40% second, you can always 100% finance that acquisition. There is a lender who will lend 60% in first position and a seller in 40% in second. Remember that tool. It's a template. It's a template. Negotiating the seller's equity collateralized by a second. It's a deal structuring template, a tool. Delayed closings, much like an option, a secured price, right? Everything's signed around, but the closing is delayed usually for the benefit that it's offering the seller, right? It's just like, especially in a rising market, the longer the closing, the better, right? I'm thinking of a deal that one of you did. I'm looking at Michael, but where the closing got so long, and it's just like, this is just great because in a rising market, the thing's worth $200,000 more than I paid for it 6 months ago. It's just, that kind of thing. It can happen. So keep that in your toolbox, right? Life estates. What do you do when somebody needs and wants to sell their house, but they don't want to leave? They love it. They just can't afford the taxes, the insurance, the upkeep of the yard, right? There was a lady named Catherine on Queen Anne Hill, beautiful location. One brother was an attorney, her other brother was a CPA, very sharp family. Catherine lived in this house forever. She was the sister, and she was probably in mid-70s, loved living there. But she couldn't afford the taxes. She couldn't afford the insurance. She couldn't afford to keep the yard up. And it was a 2-story house. She hadn't been upstairs in 10 years, right? Okay, what do we want to do? Well, I want to stay here. I just don't know what to do. And I have a little bit of Social Security, so I can't really go get a loan, God, they feel stuck. I said, Catherine, this isn't a problem. Let's work out a price. I'm going to give you a small amount down, the balance on a note, okay? And at the time, I know this prices sound ridiculous, but you'll get what happened. I was $215,000, and I gave her $15,000 down, $200 on a note. The note didn't have any interest, no payment on the note, no obligation to pay anything. You live here, you stay here. You're not paying me any rent. I've got the taxes, the insurance, and I'll send somebody every month to mow the lawn. And over the course of the next 11 years, I paid the taxes, the insurance, and I mowed the lawn. That's all I did. In 11 years, I had $77,000 more into the property. I had 15 down, 77, do the math. I'm $92,000 into this over 11 years. She lived there. She had to move out to go into a care facility. The terms went on to say that when you leave, either by choice or not by choice, right? If you pass away here or if you leave, at that point, the interest kicks in at 4.5%. First payment's due 30 days from there on a $200,000 balance. Cash out to you or your remainder beneficiaries 10 years following that. Well, it was such a small balance that when she moved out, I looked at the situation, looked at the house, I looked at what I could rent it for, I did all that math, and I decided to just sell the house. And the house sold for $1,170,000 11 years later. That's what hitting it in the right vein of appreciation can do. And so, of course, she was cashed out at that point. And yeah, it's a long-term hold. It wasn't a short-term situation. That was good. Sure, there was some tax to pay. Life estates can be very, very powerful, and they can be structured in a lot of different ways. It's a great tool. A lot of times buying a property, seller wants all cash. And they don't have a real reason for that. They just want all cash. That's their mentality. And how many times have I bought a house from a seller that's all cash, where I say, okay, I'm going to give you all cash in 2 installments. I'm going to give you part of it now and the rest in a year. Does that work? Yeah, that'd be fine. It's amazing how their mentality just shifts. Well, what have you done? You've given them 25% down and the balance on a note due in a year, but with no interest. And think about that in the world of a flip, right? That you're going to be in, work on it, sell it, and of course they'll get paid off on the sale. So isn't that better than going and getting some crazy loan for a year? You know, it's like they're financing the balance for nothing. So keep that in mind. Contract for deed. It's the old route. And I think about that more from the seller's standpoint than the buyer's standpoint. If you were selling something, consider selling it on a contract for deed, where title is not transferring to them until the note is satisfied, okay? But you'll see in a lot of parts of the country, that's the only way they think in terms of owner financing is contract for deed. And so you'll need to learn the nuances of that, and it's acceptable in certain situations. But certainly as a seller of property, know that tool. And then you get into complicated deal structures, you know, syndications, Reg D offerings, Regulation D private offerings. You get into, you know, GP and LP structured deals. I have pretty strong feelings about being on the LP side of a deal. I want to be the general partner. I want to be the one in control. I don't want to give away a controlling interest of anything that I'm bringing investors on. If it's an equity situation and you're selling shares, you need to understand that you're selling a security. And when you're selling a security, a share in an LLC, if the property's owned by an LLC and you're selling shares for an investment, you're selling a security. And therefore, it has to be a registered offering with the SEC. And you can do a private registration, a Regulation D private offering, but to say it's not registered, you're just asking for trouble. You just need a great securities attorney to draft a Regulation D offering. Joint ventures can be structured in different ways that don't involve shares. Borrowing money from people certainly can be done without shares involved, without an equity sharing situation. People can lend you money out of their self-directed IRA. I did one acquisition that had 72 partners and 71 invested in it out of their self-directed IRA. That's how they bought in. And because it was a share, it had to be a Reg D private offering. So they're buying an equity share in a building, but out of their IRA. People can also lend you money out of their IRA. And when it's self-directed, do you know how many people put their money in a self-directed IRA and then don't direct it? It just sits there and they pay fees every year to have their money in an account that's not doing anything? Yeah, right. Brian raises his hand. Well, maybe he's giving out loans. You never know. A tool in the toolbox that people go, what in the world? Why would you buy an apartment building that you want to keep forever, right? It's a really great one. It's a great location. It pencils like crazy. And the minute you get it, you condo it out. You turn them all into separate legal descriptions. And maybe even run the risk that without some argument, your taxes may go up because now it's a different tax base for property tax. Okay, why would you do that? Well, to me, if you take, I'm thinking of one building that I did that to, a 34 unit. I have now 34 first position lien slots available versus one. And when I first discovered this when I was a kid. It was like, oh my God, the world of financing changes completely if all of a sudden, instead of asking, let's say it's a 10-unit building, instead of asking somebody for, a $2 million loan, you're asking people for $200,000 loans. You see, there's a lot of people that have $200,000 sitting around that want to invest it with a first position collateral agreement against some piece of real estate. When you get into the world of people lending $2 million, you're dealing with people who do that professionally, right? They don't just have $2 million sitting around that they don't know what to do with. And so it changes the playing field in terms of opening the world of financing up so completely. All right, so condo conversions. And what can you condo out? You can condo anything out. I've condoed out marinas, airplane hangars, apartment buildings, parking lots. I mean, you can condo out anything. It's creating a separate legal description for this piece of dirt, this unit, this mortgage slip, this airplane hangar is a condominium, right? And so when you think about it, though, the value of that with the lien slots, now here's the overlay, here's the multi-dimensions of our thinking, overlay that with the ability to take a large note and slice it up and encumber part of the asset with the note, leaving a lot of it free and clear. How many times have I done that? Take an apart, let's take an easy 10 unit, right? And it's got $1 million loan against it, right? Okay. But that note that I've created for $1 million has a substitution of security clause and it has a slice and dice clause. All right? So that $1 million building is an apartment. When I condo it out, now those apartments are worth a lot more than just one unit in an apartment building, right? So let's say that condo unit's worth $200,000, right? And it rents for $1,000 a month. Okay? All right. As a condo, as an apartment, it's not worth $2 million. So I've gained value with the conversion. But then I take the note for $1 million and I slice it up into $200,000 notes. And I maximize my leverage on 5 units in that project. There's my $1 million, right? It's got cash flow to support it. It's got equity to support it. But now I got 5 units free and clear. All with the overlay of a conversion, followed by a slice and dice clause on the note that I negotiated, followed by the SOS clause. Those layers, you set that all up in the beginning in your thinking of what I'm going to do with this asset. Wow. I mean, how many times have I gone out on a day on the street with a student and we look at a building and I go, tell me about it. And I go, well, it's a nice mixed use building. There's three, I saw this 2 weeks ago. There's 3 nice little retail spaces down below. And then there's 16 apartments above. I go, okay, great. And tell me about the financing. Well, it's conventional. But I don't owe a lot. I 1031 it into this. I have a whole bunch down into it. I got a lot of equity in it. I go, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. You only owe $1 million on this whole building, right? First step, we're going to condo it out. Why would I do that? I want to keep it. We're going to condo it out. Then we're going to have separate valuations of every one of these commercial units and every one of these units above it, separate valuations. We're going to figure out our leverageable equity, reverse engineered at 5%. Then we're going to go to the world of self-directed IRA financing. We're going to line up enough investors to cash you out the $1 million of the building, and we're going to close 5 separate loans with individuals to encumber 5 of these units, which leaves you the rest of the building completely free and clear. What? Can you say that again? No, this is really not hard. We're just going to walk through these steps. And I know that when I'm sitting here with you guys, you understand every word I'm saying. I can promise you there's people out there that I'm speaking Chinese right now. I promise you. And And that's okay. That's fine. That's where we start. But I, like you, I hope that they get it from Chinese to English by leaning in and understanding and learning and growing, because you employ these things, you know these things. Many people don't. That tool of condoing things out. Had a student buy a piece of commercial dirt right next to an NFL stadium. And, paid a lot of money for the dirt. Whoa, what's the plan? What are you going to do? What are you going to build? Geez, big expensive piece of dirt. You know what he did? Fenced it, took out a chalk machine like you would chalk a baseball field, and chalked lines in there and numbered them. Ran an ad and said, I'm in the process of condoing this out for parking spaces. If you season ticket holders would like a permanent spot to park, just let me know, because pretty soon I'm going to have a separate legal description on all of these parking spaces, and you can buy them from me. There's my whole infrastructure plan, was a bag of chalk. That's entrepreneurship. I just love that. I really do. I love that. Product types. Oh my God. Product types. Well, product types in real estate are soup to nuts. And where is opportunity? And again, I have a 50-year perspective, and opportunity is like the Weather Channel, right? Looks clear. Let's go this way for a while, And then all of a sudden something happens and shifts, and okay, now you've got to adjust, and you go here and you go there. So understand that will always be the case. You're never going to just start doing one thing and that's all you'll do the rest of your life, right? Things change, and we've got to adapt to that. This last little wave in COVID, having to do with the West Coast of the United States, especially the West Coast, wow, it really stung those people who were leasing long-term rentals, because it was just, with no effort at all, you could live in that unit for a couple years and nobody was going to kick you out. All you had to do was spell COVID, and that was it. And you were there, and nobody's going to kick you out, and you didn't have to pay your rent, and that was just the way it was. Well, that really upended things. And all of a sudden, people got very creative around that, and a lot of people got out of owning that kind of product type, and a lot of people shifted to nightly rentals and midterm rentals because it changed the whole landlord-tenant equation. And a lot of people said, screw that, I'm never going to own a residential unit that you live in ever again in my life. And so the world of RV parks and mobile home parks, where they own the dirt, and it's a whole different relationship with the landlord-tenant, and commercial real estate, whole different real estate, equation with the tenant. And you see how one thing starts a new angle. The world of Airbnb changed everything and how everything was done. And all of a sudden, is this permittable or not permittable? Or how do you secure your spot to create a nightly rental in certain locations? And, laws were evolving like grass growing in springtime. You couldn't keep up with it because nobody'd seen this before. And all of a sudden, the hotel industry, they really dive in and go, whoa, 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 you can't rent out that thing. You're taking our business away. Well, yes, we are. And isn't it about time? And, you see what I mean? It's ever changing. And so knowing different product types and being able to flex and weave in different geographic areas throughout the country, different political areas throughout the country, this is all just part of what entrepreneurs do. And it's part of what makes it so fun, is that it's ever changing. We can't get all bent out of shape about it. Entrepreneurs aren't trying to change the way the world twists. We just go to the opportunity at that time. So, but you got to know product types. Residential, there's opportunity in certain buy and flips right now in residential. There are certain markets that residential will still cash flow, but then of course you've got the long-term rental issues, right? Okay. residential permitted nightly basis. There's areas that have huge need and demand for nightly rental houses, right? So it's not that there isn't game there. And of course, the world of spec building in certain areas is solid. Multiplexes, residential. It's just more scalable residential. And of course, the world of scalability is a good component in the world of owning real estate. And so it provides that. Office right now, wow. If you can figure out the secret sauce for reconfiguring office space to something that is viable, you're going to win an award, because there's a lot of office, just the construction of it really makes it almost impossible to convert it to other uses. And so there's a lot of office sitting vacant. I watched a Class A office building in downtown Seattle 3 years ago. I mean, we're talking 14 stories, Class A office building, sold at auction for 20 bucks a foot. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, you couldn't build that building for 500 bucks a foot, not even close. But it's vacant. And the tenant that used to occupy the whole thing was gone, and nobody wanted it, nobody needed it. The bank finally said, whatever, let's just give it away. And they gave it away. Yeah. So office is really a tough one. Now, there can only be so many WeWorks out there, so many of these, group office facilities. And I think they're a little bit saturated right now, but again, keep your eyes peeled. There's possibilities there, because there's certainly a lot of deals happening in terms, at least from a cost approach to value, there's a lot of deals. Retail. Well, a lot of retail facilities now, again, since COVID, are just really hurting because Amazon has sort of taken over. If you can get it on Amazon and it can be delivered to your door tomorrow, whatever store is selling that is on its way out of business, right? And so specialty retail, perhaps, but you see a lot of strip malls and a lot of malls in general going to service tenants, not retail tenants. And service tenants can't be delivered and dropped on your door. They're the guy that cuts the hair, the daycare, the restaurant, the people that provide something, a service. So there's a big convention in Las Vegas this year that every commercial user is there, and where you as an owner of commercial property can be there lobbying, that next Jamba Juice come to your space because you've got the perfect location for it, right? And that's what's happening right now in Las Vegas. Mixed use in infill is everywhere right now. And again, the long-term rental nature of the apartment side of mixed use concerns me, but sometimes those apartments can be bought, converted to condos, and those, again, with separate lien slots, can be privately financed and sold on wrap notes. And so there's possibilities there. A lot of stuff going on in the light industrial world right now. The light industrial world has a lot of reconfiguration going on and a lot of slicing up. You see a lot of malls with the big box store, the big box becoming that piece that gets sliced up into a lot smaller units. That's happening in light industrial as well. Light industrial provides some opportunities that I think are really awesome right now. RV storage has to be in a light industrial zone. And man, I'll tell you something. That's one of those opportunities that I think is one of the greatest opportunities right now, because the infrastructure of a RV storage yard is very minimal compared to any sort of vertical infrastructure. It can be as simple as a fence and gravel and a place to park. It can be that simple, or it can go to covered storage or box storage, but RV storage, generally speaking, has to be in a light industrial zone. Raw land. We talked about briefly about the resources of raw land can be real drawing. Raw land from a development standpoint right now, I got to tell you, cities and counties and the hoops and hurdles that you're going to go through to take a piece of raw land all the way through final plat approval and stabilization, wow, it's a deep pocket process, and it's getting longer and longer and longer. Even a short plat can take up to 3 years. That being said, the opportunity for ADUs and DADUs and new laws that are going in, at least in Washington, where you can put up to 4 units now in a residential lot, and then do a condo overlay, and all of a sudden create 4 legal descriptions on one lot through a condo overlay, not through a formal short plat process. That's a very simple 3 or 4 month effort compared to years to actually slice it up to a conforming lot. And so there's some opportunities there. The world of DADUs and that condo overlay is almost a boutique specialty right now in the Northwest. I don't know about everywhere in the country, but density is driving infill, and most cities are on that vein, that they're wanting to keep density in the urban environments, and the way to do that is to just allow more units on a residential lot. So that detached dwelling unit, again, add that to a nightly rental situation. You see, we're avoiding the long-term rental. That can be a really great focus. One of the things that I've bumped into recently in a couple different, with students doing this, that I just love the entrepreneurship. Have you ever heard of this? It's an event called Tough Mudder. Have you heard of this? Well, one of the students that I have has a piece of dirt and is one of the approved Tough Mudder courses, which infrastructure-wise, it was a little bit of effort to put it together and set it all up, but then negotiates with the promoter that gets paid per head that shows up to use the land on the course, right? And it pays pretty well. Okay, another with that kind of same vein has set up a piece of property to do swap meets. 3 a year, 3 swap meets a year pay for the land cost for the entire year. So he just basically says, I'm promoting a swap meet, here it is, bring your stuff, and uses acreage in the field, puts out a bunch of Santa cans, and they all come and they set out all their shit for 3 days. And I mean, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of people coming, and of course the vending trucks and the this and that, this whole monetization of a piece of dirt for a swap meet. Another was just that simple, the Talladega Speedway. Right across the street from the Talladega Speedway was a vacant piece of dirt, and the math got figured out that of the 10 or 11 races that speedway has a year, where 100,000 people are coming or more, it's more than 100,000 people come and jam in there, that they just, rope off their lot and put people in orange vests, and it's $20 a day to park, and did the math. It's like a Christmas tree lot. They work 11 days out of the year and pay for the land. And I don't know, there's something about that I just love that. Maybe because I used to have a Christmas tree lot, and in 3 weeks, as a kid, I'd make my $15,000 in 3 weeks as a student in 1977 at the University of Washington, and geez, it felt like I won the lottery. And I had pitch in my hand for the next 6 months, and I just loved that, and it was really good, right? RV parks and mobile home parks. Wow. Think about the way people are retiring right now. Think about the landlord-tenant world, where you don't own the unit. You're just providing dirt and hookups. At least I don't want to own the unit. You can own the unit, and that's a whole boutique personal property world there that you can buy and sell through contract the units. I really don't want to mess with that. I just like the thought of renting dirt and hookups. And it's the most affordable way people can retire. And when you look at baby boomers who are all retiring right now, I mean, beyond their Social Security, most have nothing. So it's living in an RV, paying $600-700 a month for a hookup is the most reasonable way you're going to retire. And so they're in demand, and they've got to be in a place where it's year-round weather, right? You don't want to do this in, you know, a cold climate half the year even. It's going to be a year-round climate where they can live. So I like those. Commercial storage. This is a whole world in a boutique that I have a student that all he does is lease ground adjoining off-ramps of major interstates. Like lease it, like a big piece of ground. And then get a conditional use permit to be able to park vehicles there. And so the semi trucks pull off, they drop their trailer, they go to their next thing. It's a storage lot for semi trailers because it's right off the freeway on a major interstate, and he's got it figured out where that's a convenient thing to do. And, you know, it's just a sandwich lease. He leases this whole piece of dirt for X, and then he leases it out individually for Y, and the difference between is a lot. The commercial storage world usually has to have a light industrial or industrial zone. In this case, everything he's doing is through conditional use permit. And so it's the same as conforming zoning once you have a conditional use permit to do it. So I like things like that. Again, no infrastructure, very, very little liability. It's just a parking space. And this all falls under the bucket of real estate entrepreneurship. Now, leasing that piece of dirt with an option to buy, you can see how that makes sense as well, right? Okay, let me just take a look for the very, very first time. Yeah, that's about what I thought. I want to dive a little bit into some mistakes that I see commonly made, and mostly in the world of people buying income-producing real estate. Everybody knows, who's ever bought a piece of income-producing piece of real estate, the income approach to value. The annual expenses taken out of the annual income, right? This creates your annual net operating income. Net operating income divided by capitalization rate equals value. Well, first of all, if I asked you what capitalization rate is and said, write me a paragraph on what that means, most people would flunk. So I'll just get to the answer. It's a measure of risk. And risk is not only the financial risk you're taking, but the subjective risk you're taking. It's not one way to measure risk. Capitalization rate takes into account all risk, okay? And so the valuation, first of all, understanding that valuation is really, really important. You could have a building sitting right here that is the ugliest 1958 apartment building ever built, and it's on this lot, exactly this lot size, the exact zoning as the one sitting right next to it. And right next to it's a 1926 gorgeous brick building, right? And you look at those two buildings, they're on the same lot size, the same zoning, the same side of the street. They have the exact same net operating income. Exactly. Therefore, most people would say the same cap rate would apply, and therefore they're worth the same amount. They're not even close to being worth the same amount. One is beautiful and romantic and has condominium conversion written all over it because it's so stunning, right? And the other one looks like a Tom Bodette Motel 6, I'll leave the light on. It's an ugly piece of shit, right? They are not worth the same amount. And yet, why are they different? They're the same NOI in the same location. So people go, well, the prevailing cap rate in this area is a 6 cap. What do you mean the prevailing cap rate in this area? What, are you just putting them all in a pool? That's ridiculous. Number one fallacy is that cap rate is more than just a number. it has subjective risk. You're taking a lot more risk buying an ugly building than a beautiful building, okay? Number two, cap rate always assumes that the buyer paid all cash. What a joke. Really? So this guy that paid all cash, that building is worth the same amount as if he put 10% down, the balance on a note at 3% over 20 years? You're telling me the building is worth the same? Hell no. These terms make that building worth a hell of a lot more, right? And any sophisticated seller would know that if I'm going to give you these terms, I can get a premium and overprice for this building. And they do. I just want you to not get hung up on standard formulas and think you know it. This is why you listen to a song 200 times. Is it the first time you hear the lyrics and the music? By the 200th time, you feel the bones of the writer who wrote it. You know it in a different way. And I want people to know so that they don't make mistakes using stupid formulas. I hear people just bark out these stats as if they've got it figured out. Well, here's the gross rent multiplier, here's the this, here's the that. They're just buy property statistically. No, there's so much more to it than that. And that's the transition we're going to make, okay? Because we can dive into finding opportunity, and there's all kinds of ways to find opportunity. And nowadays, with the world of AI and computers and all of the things that are getting smarter and smarter, finding possibility is easy. But when you find possibility, here comes the right side skill set. Because now you're going to have to connect with somebody. Now, all of this knowledge, all this finance, all this deal structuring, all this left brain technical side has got to go get a yes on a proposition. And this is the subjective art form of negotiation. And it's an art form. And where do you learn and how do you grow in that quickly? Well, you don't. Like any art form, it's practiced. It's practiced. I want to try to give you some things to think on that are so critical to that art form. And again, I'm trying to give you 6 years of college with Dr. Michael Shadow and another 44 years of practicing what he's taught me in 10 minutes. But I'm going to try. When we meet somebody, when we have got to communicate with a property owner, a seller, the first and most important thing is I need to understand the language of my audience. I need to understand the attitude, the beliefs, the predispositions, the propensities. I need to see what the currency of this person is. Every person is different. And I've got to get into the vibe of who they are and what moves them, what freaks them out, what makes them happy, what their attitude is about life and living. If they have anything that jumps off the page that they're especially expressive about, we call that pre-existing momentum. Every real estate broker is an asshole. I can't stand them. That's momentum. That's not just kinda. That's a real attitude. And so you log that in. That's a language and an attitude of this person that you're going to incorporate into your dialogue, into your proposition. It's a given. It's a gimme. You don't have to wonder what they think. Okay? You're going to grasp that language. You're going to grasp pre-existing momentum. You're going to try to hear what they're not saying. You're going to look at their eyes and their words and see if they match. This is intuitive, but it's also a skill that you can learn how to kind of vet things out. How many times have you said to someone, so tell me, Chris, how are you? And Chris says, oh, I'm fine. He's not fine. You didn't sell me, buddy. I'll ask it again. How are you? You see, I heard different. His words didn't match his tempo, his tone, his attitude. That awareness has got to be front and center, which means this has got to be face-to-face, which means that face-to-face in their environment is always the best, because the clues to who they are. If I were to, have you right here and said, okay, wander around for 2 minutes, you could probably write a pretty damn accurate book about me just by wandering around here. The clues are everywhere as to who I am and what I'm about. Well, when I'm in their space, I have that advantage, you see. I'm seeing their world. I'm seeing how they interact with kids running in and out and their spouse. I'm seeing what's going on. I'm seeing their environment. I'm seeing their sense of value. Those are all puzzle pieces that need to be constructed to create agreement. I've got to sound and act and understand them in order to be them, because who do you agree with more than anyone else? Yourself. And I've got to speak your language. Now, sometimes I'm going to rhetorically create agreement. For example, if he gave me this attitude that he has about real estate brokers, very casual in conversation, I could say, well, I heard this from a broker, but we know about them, don't we? And he goes, hell yeah. What have we just done there? We just have created one agreement. That little interchange is we've just put an agreement in our pocket. We can't stand real estate agents. I didn't ever say that. I just insinuated that. I just said, and we know about that. And my tone said, now it's your turn. Hell yeah, pieces of shit, right? And okay, we've agreed. The bigger the ask, the more small agreements we need to make. And I'm going to look for ways of making those agreements. And if I can move those agreements from verbal to even just a little slap on the shoulder, it's like, what's the rest of the world thinking? You and I agree on this. That touch is like an exclamation point. It confirms it. It says, we're here. We're here. And you see the evolution of you moving closer, dropping your shoulders, becoming more trusting of each other because you're speaking the same language. Pre-existing momentum, the language of your audience, always the first thing you look for. Always start your negotiation going in the direction of your audience. And you may be going completely opposite the way you want to go initially. You want to go this way, but this is where he's going, so you just start rowing. And then, over time, you just pull on one oar, just a little bit more, and just slowly. And all of a sudden, you're turning. That's the art form of negotiation.
Oh.
Negotiation covers a couple undeniable principles, the canons of rhetoric, as Aristotle would call them. One, the primacy effect. The very, very first thing we hear, see, it logs in. We'll never forget it. The first thing. It's why that front porch on a flip is the most important 12 square feet you'll ever work on in your life, because it's the first thing they see. And it's also the recency effect, the last thing they see. It's the first 2 minutes of a movie and the last 2 minutes of a movie. That's where they spend all their time. Everything in between is less important than the beginning and the end. And so the way you introduce yourself, the way you answer your phone, it's the storefront of your world, right? You send somebody a bird letter and they read it and they go, there, well, I'm going to call this guy, and you answer the phone and go, yeah, what's up? you've just shot yourself in the head. You'll never unring that bell. You're the rude asshole, doesn't know how to answer the phone. But if you answer the phone, good afternoon. This is Greg Pinio. You have my full attention. How can I help you? They go, whoa. I mean, I've had people pause and go, wow, I'm not sure I've had anybody's full attention in my whole life. And I go, God, that's too bad. You've got mine. Tell me what I can do. And you mean it, and you lean in, and there's no distractions. Great negotiation is 100% focused attention. We live in a world of continuous partial attention. Does not work in the world of negotiation. Every little nonverbal, every little movement. Jim and I were on a Zoom call recently, and we hadn't met these people, and here they were on a Zoom call. And oh my God. I mean, you could replay that Zoom call and you just watch the nonverbal. Just the slightest nonverbal and the way they look at each other. And it wrote a book. We knew our audience just from focusing on their nonverbal. It was fishing in a barrel after that, wasn't it? It was just, wow. And so this idea of being focused will change your world. I mean, would you take a nice glass of Leonetti and just pour a bunch of water in it and then drink it down? Oh my God, you should be shot. This is Leonetti, right? I can see people going, Leonetti, what's that? Right? Walla Walla, look it up. Our communication with people has to be like that. It has to be where they feel they have your 100% attention. And where they go, you go. Would you like some tea? Are you having some? I'd then love some, right? I hate tea. You bet. Of course. Would you like to see pictures of my cat? I'd love to. Right? Right? But you do it, and you do it. It takes focus. You do it because that's agreement to where now we can talk about what we really want to do, and the cards are on the table, and then we can solve things. Okay? The art form of negotiation is something that, again, it's an art form, and I could spend all day on it, and I need to, but unfortunately, we can't do that. I have studied high achievement since I was 18. I became fascinated with those who had a life that appeared to be very different than normal. I would beg them to just let me take them out to lunch or dinner and just ask them questions. And I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people, and you start seeing common threads. Common threads. I love it when you can start seeing a common thread because when everyone you respect does certain things consistently, you should take note, okay? Number one thing, they have an urgency of life. They don't waste time, okay? We've talked about that. Number two, they're extremely aware that there's a battle going on in their mind. Now, I know that sounds about as weird can get, but they're aware that there's a battle. They hear the two voices, both their own voice, one an advocate, one an adversary. And the battle never goes away. You just learn how to win the battle. You just learn how to win the battle. And they know it, and they've learned to win the battle. I've had more conversations around that with high achievers than you can even believe. And so when I look at that, I go, interesting. The next thing that I think it's just really interesting that it's sort of even on the list. But the idea of recognizing that they are an individual. We live in a world that is just becoming unhealthy, especially among young people, with all of this social media and comparing themselves to everybody else. I mean, it's an epidemic among teenage girls right now. Suicide's never been higher among teenage girls because they just don't look as beautiful as the other 14-year-olds, so they kill themselves. It's just horrific. When you recognize that what God created is you, and there's only one of you, you find a purpose for that. You lean into that there's a reason that I'm here, and you're looking to accelerate that. You're looking to do it not for you, but for what it will do around you. The greatest reason for success that you could ever come up with, in my mind, is that it's not about you. It's because people are watching you. Every parent, I guarantee it, people are watching you, right? But if you're not a parent, people are watching you. When you start playing your own game and rising, you will have an audience. If you're able and you think this way, you're obligated to be a great example. Do you know why highly successful people run to make commitment when they know they're called to something? Think about it. They hear about something, they assess it, they go, yep, that is going to move in the direction that I'm wanting to move, and they literally run to make a commitment to that. You know why they do that? Because when you commit, providence moves too. In other words, said a different way, when you commit, you slam the door on the face of the anti-you that's trying to keep you in sameness. And they realize that as soon as I can slam this door and commit, anti-you just sits down and shuts up because that decision's been made. And therefore, they are people that do things and commit to things and make things happen because it shuts the door of the anti-you that wants everything to just stay in this wonderful going nowhere coma. Why is it that 1% of the people do 95% of everything? Ask yourself that. They run to commitment and they make things happen. Because when you commit, providence moves too. You want to supercharge anything you're doing? Commit to the things you know you should, and all of a sudden, the way and the power to pull it off happens. Every entrepreneur I've ever talked to that has just made a huge mark has felt like they've been choking most of their life. Do you feel that way? I know you guys do. I want to know, do you feel that way? I want you to feel that way. Choking is a privilege for those that venture to live a deliberate life. It's a privilege because you've committed and you believed. And although you choke your way around it, the next thing you know, you've built an $8 million house on the waterfront, gagging the whole way. But you did it because you committed to it. And providence gets off the bench and in the game, and the anti-you gets shut down. I'm too busy to hear you bitching at me. I got things to do. And you just get it done, and you get it done. Why is it that a few people hold all the wealth? I've already told you the common threads. And I mean, they are common threads. And it's not giftedness. It's not, coming from a pedigree. It's not even intelligence. My God, if I lined up the top 100 power players, there'd be a gasp that would suck the air right out of this room. There's one of them sitting right there, right? Right there. Brian, who's only sat and listened to me talk, I don't know, for 20 fucking years. It's unbelievable. But he's the multimillionaire next door. The guy that looks like he's damn near homeless, right? I love that. I love it, and he knows I love it. Because every time he's here, I said, just get ready. I'm always going to call you out. But I love it because it's proof that success is an inside job. It's you say, when you quit. You say when it's too hard. You say when I'm not going to give it anymore. And you is the real you in your mind. And when you listen to that voice, yes is the answer. We got this is the answer. You can do it is the answer. Hell yes, let's go. That's the answer when you listen to the real you. So, you know, I don't know. It seems like we're full circle, right? It started that there's a lot to know about real estate, but here we are now talking about what really unlocks it all is how we think. It's how we think. I think differently. I push people to think differently. I believe in the toolbox, and it's a toolbox, and you got to know it. You've got to know it in and out, left and right. You've got to be a student of it. Every day I'm learning and reading, and I've done it for 50 years, learning and reading and growing and asking questions and tell me about that. And God, the day and age, you can look things up and learn so much. So it's just awesome, right? That's what life is supposed to be like. And you guys know it. I've forgotten that I'm talking to anybody else out there. I don't even know if they're still here, to be honest with you. But you know this, and you're living this, and I'm proud of you. And there's 2,163 power players in this country that I'm proud of. They're stirring it up. They're thinking differently, and they've got a toolbox. They have got a toolbox. And so I guess I'll get back to what this is all about. Because we're going to get on with some food and just spending some time together. But directing this to an audience that is in little boxes on a screen that I'm looking at. First of all, thank you for taking the whole evening. Thank you for locking in. Thank you for dedicating this time to being here. It's always a privilege to talk to people who are sincerely looking to up their game. But I can tell you that this isn't easy. That isn't what a lot of people want to hear. They want the secret sauce, the magic wand, just add water and poof, you're a millionaire. I have no idea what that looks like. No idea what that looks like. I don't have that wand. I don't have the formula for that sauce. What I can tell you is that the journey can be absolutely awesome when framed properly. That growing and learning and being a part of those who are taking it seriously can be the greatest thing you've ever done. And the greatest influence are the people we spend time with. And so what I do these, well, Day at the Hangar, this is the virtual version of a Day at the Hangar. For you who couldn't make it, it's the condensed version. What I hope happens out of a discussion like this is I hope that you realize that there's more in that gas tank, that there's more I can do, that there's greater things that haven't happened yet. And I hope you feel a little bit frustrated. I hope you feel a little bit like, damn, I got to do this. Because for that person, as in the people I'm with tonight, for that person, I'm all in. I will give you 110%. I will wring myself out like a shop towel for that discussion when somebody wants to say, hey, here's where I'm at. Here's where I want to go. What do I do? I want to have that one-on-one discussion. I've had that one-on-one discussion with every single one of you and 2,065 more. And I've loved every one of those discussions. Power Players number 41 is coming up in Bend, Oregon. What a privilege. Who would have thought that an introvert would teach this class 41 times to the greatest 50 people in each class? And many of you have been TAs there. And what a privilege. But it starts with that discussion that says, where are you at and where do you want to be? And so I guess the if there's a proposition to this evening, it's simply this. If you want to have a one-on-one call with me that is drop dead serious, I will make that happen. I'll schedule that. I want to have that with you, but I don't want to have it if you're just dipping your toe in the kiddie pool of life. I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to take my time for that. I want to talk to people who want to live an extraordinary life, who want to find their verse and live it flat out. You know, real estate doesn't have to be the end-all, do-all for everybody's life. Matter of fact, I have a lot of people that say, listen, I know exactly what I want to do. I just need to make $1 million first. Great, let's do it. Let's do it. I have lots of power players who did real estate for 6, 7 years, and that's it. They're doing what they were called to do. Wow, how great a deal is that? I'm all for it. Others love it for a lifetime. But I do know that we all want the same things. We all want the same things at heart. We want to get up and we want to do what we want to do when we want to do it. Right? We want to be able to give and provide to people. We want to see a need and handle it quietly. Nobody even knows how it got handled. We just handled it. Right? Nothing better than that. We want the best for our family and our kids. And that might include a cabin on a lake, not for a cabin on a lake, but to go spend great, meaningful time with the people that you care about most. That's why the cabin on a lake has meaning, right? We want the freedom to not have to worry about money. We don't want to look at a menu and go, can I afford that tonight? Forget that. I want to eat what I want to eat. We don't want to worry about finances. I'm fishing in a barrel. We're all the same with this. We want to contribute our verse in the powerful play. And we want the freedom and finances to do it, to live the way we want to live. Well, I got to tell you, this vehicle that I love and I believe in, it'll drive you wherever you want to go. It has the horsepower. There's no question about it. I'm as normal as an old shoe, but man, I don't live a normal life, and I know it. And I know it. And I'm blessed that the introvert somehow got a tap on the shoulder that says, teach the way you think. That was a lot of years ago, and I'm very, very privileged to be able to do that. So if you want that one-on-one call, here's how that's going to work. I mean, and it's got to work this way. Is there a way of putting my number up on this screen? Is there? I want you to write this number down. You guys all have it. But that number that I'm looking at on the screen, I guess you can see it now. That's my only number. That's it. That's not a hologram. That's not a call center. That's not my qualified person that, no, it's me. And, you know, I did this once in New York City, and there were over 10,000 people in the audience. And it took me a long time to get to every single one, but I got to every single one that texted me and said, I want that one-on-one meeting. I don't do this to entertain anybody. I do it so that we can get to that meeting, and then from there, if there's a way I can help, I'm going to help. I'm going to get in the game. And if there isn't a way I can help, I'm going to give you my best angle of where I think you should go and what you should do. But if you want that meeting, you're going to text me. I'm going to receive that text, and I'm going to text you back thanking you, and I'm going to text you back suggesting a time. Now, if we have a time, and let's say it's, I'm just picking a date, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, Pacific Standard Time, I'm going to call, and I want you to be on time. I will be on the minute. Have I ever told you I'm going to call you and your phone didn't ring on the minute? That would be nobody in this room is saying that I am on the minute kind of guy. And I'm on the minute in a quiet place. I've got a notepad and a pen. You'll have my 100% full focused attention. And the reason I tell you that is I want the same from you. I don't want you driving down the road where I can't hear you and you can't hear me, multitasking, you're at the grocery store. No, that doesn't work. If I'm going to give you my full focused attention, you're going to give me yours. And we're going to have a real conversation. We're not going to be talking about the weather. We're going to get right to it. Tell me about who you are, what drives you, what frustrates you, where are you at, where do you want to go? That's the conversation we're going to have. It is the most non-scalable thing anybody like me could possibly do, but it's the reason I'm around. It's what I'm asked to do, so I do it. And from there, if I can help you, I will. And if I know who could help you more, I'm going to send you a contact information. Might be one of these people right here. Call them. They know more about that than I do. That's it. That's it. That's what we do at these days at the hangar that you couldn't attend, which is why you're on a Zoom call. We had a day at the hangar, March 1st, I think it was, right? And it was actually at a big hotel room because this got too small, got kicked out of here. I was privileged to be able to one-on-one call 137 people back. And I spent about an hour with each one of them. So you can do the math. It took a couple weeks. But I learned a lot about them. They learned some things about me. And I really do feel that was time well spent for everybody. Now, again, if this is just to say hi or this or that, just say you don't need to call me, but just wanted to say hi. This is you know, I'm getting old. And my 14 hours of work a day where I focus on this, I need to fill it correctly. And so I guess what I'm saying is I want you to be serious about this. I hope that after our time tonight, I hope that, yeah, we're there, aren't we? I hope that you feel a little disturbed. I hope that you learn something. I hope that you feel a little more able, a little taller. That's the objective. But as much as anything, I hope that you don't just leave it there. I hope that this disruption causes you to take some kind of action. Or else it's just been entertainment. You should have been on Netflix. They're much better actors. I'm not an actor. I'm on a mission. If you want to change the world, how would you do it? Well, you would pass the baton to younger, able people who have the same vision. And I can honestly tell you that every day I hear about amazing things happening with this group of people that I get to work with. And so I'd love to hear what your vision is, what you want to do. I'm going to tell you one story and then we're going to wrap up. I got an opportunity to do a day on the street with a couple, a one-on-one day on the street. And I flew to their hometown, which is in the middle of Michigan. And it was an ugly, rainy, nasty day in muddy Michigan. And at the end of the day, I could tell two things. One, I didn't see anything that inspired me. And I could tell that even though we drove everywhere they spent time at, there was nothing that we looked at that inspired them. And we went out, we bought some cheap glass of box wine at the only place that was open. And I said, "Why do you live here?" They said, "Because this is where we were raised." I said, "Okay, I understand you were raised here. Why do you live here now?" "Well, I'm not really sure." Do you have family that's here? Well, some, but most not. They're all different places. So do you live here just because this is just what you know, what you're familiar with? I guess so. And I directed my comment to her, the wife of this couple. And I said, do this. It's going to feel weird, but I want you to just do this for me. I want you to close your eyes right now. And if you could be anywhere you want to be, like your most amazing space you could possibly imagine, what do you see? Just keep your eyes closed and tell me what you see. And she said, well, I see a beautiful ocean, and I see beautiful beaches and beautiful buildings. I said, where are you looking from? Oh, I'm in the top floor condominium unit, with like the penthouse unit out on my deck looking at these things. I said, okay, tell me more. What's around you? Oh, I'm drinking a glass of wine. I'm looking out there. Oh my God. I said, what are you doing tomorrow? Oh, I'm going to go, I said, come on, dream, whatever you see, just say it. What do you see? Well, I'm going to go be in a photo shoot. I'm going to be a model. So what's in the photo shoot? I don't know. I see a helicopter in the photo shoot. And I'm like, okay, keep going. What else? Well, I'm driving an Audi, and I'm dressed in beautiful clothes, and I'm showing somebody a beautiful house. And I said, okay, open your eyes. Look out the window. She looks out the diner window. I go, does anything you're looking at resemble what you just saw? No. Here's how we're going to end our day. The two of you are taking a field trip. I'm going to give you cities I want you to go to. I'm going to give you who's going to meet you there. They're friends of mine. They're students of mine. I want you to check out the city. It's going to take you a week or so. And then I want you to call me. You're going to tell me where you're going to move to. And there was like silence. And I said, no, I'm not kidding. You want my prescription? There's my prescription. And you know what they did? They packed up. The first city they went to was Tampa, Florida. They went from there to San Diego. They went from there up a little bit further up the coast to San Luis Obispo. And I said, okay, what do you think? Oh my God, I just can't get Tampa out of my head. I said, well, then that's where you got to go. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to go there. You're going to get real estate licenses. You're going to start buying real estate. You're going to have a brokerage firm. And let's do it. 1 year after that phone call, they had a real estate company in Tampa, Florida. She was Florida's top model. They lived on the top floor of a 28-story condominium unit on the penthouse. And they both drove Audis. Arrival before departure. Where have you been? Just not yet. Who are you really that no one's ever seen? What is your verse in the powerful play? And you playing any other part, nobody's going to benefit, including you. I believe it. We all have our part in the play. Faking some other part for somebody else's reason. That's what Thoreau calls living a life of quiet desperation. Upward and outward, growth, change, reinventing yourselves based on results that are extraordinary is how we're supposed to live. I really hope we get to have a one-on-one conversation. Because at the very, very least, you think you're disturbed now, wait till we get done with that phone call. All significant change starts with disruption. God bless Jim Rohn for saying that. I believe it. And so hopefully you're wonderfully disturbed. It's 8 o'clock. Can you believe it? Wow. It's past 8. Thank you for giving me 3 hours of absolute focused time. I don't deserve it. I appreciate it. I've got a lot of food here. There's lots to drink. We'll turn on the heat now for those that you're freezing. And we'll enjoy our time together. Thank you guys, and thank you who are watching out there in internet land. My number, again, 206-226-7777. I hope to hear from you. God bless you all. Pinio out.